Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 117 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it is me, the LoneVaultWanderer.
And it's me, Karak, with ACG.
So welcome, everyone, to this lovely episode. We have a lot of great news lined up for you, but before we dive into any of that news, forget the normal promotions we do at the beginning. We want to talk about something really important. The sound engineer, one of the main ones who worked on Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4, was recently diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. And there will be a GoFundMe link in the description down below. We highly encourage you guys to please check it out if you are able to donate and help him out, because he was a part of creating some of our favorite gaming experiences, and it's always a shame when we hear something like that happen. So please check that out in the link in the description down below. We'd really appreciate that. And now let's move on to our first bit of news. Let's talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. I've been waiting for a good Kingdom Hearts segment on the podcast for a long while, and finally we got something to talk about. And I'm excited to hear Karak's reaction to this, because he'll be the one who brings me down to earth. Kingdom Hearts 3 is apparently coming out in 2018, and presumably it's going to be a fall 2018 title. This is the first time since the game was announced in 2013 that we have a date tied to this. Every single trailer has always ended in now in development, and now we finally have a date, or I'm sorry, a time frame. We have a window. How accurate do you feel this is?
I don't feel it's very accurate at all. Like, I feel, well, I guess 2018 could be accurate if, you know, you're considering all the way up to December 31st. They're just, I mean, hasn't it been a long time, though? Like, I mean, when was the first time we saw stuff on this?
2013.
Yeah, I think I was playing my PS2. So, like, it's, I mean, it was like Last Guardian and that were announced the same day, kind of thing. Yeah. So I hope it comes out. Like, I'm waiting for it, and that stuff I saw about Toy Story. Yeah, that looked insane. So I'm stoked for it, but it's just so far out, and you never quite know. And you and I talked about this. Were we talking about this on Discord? I can't remember where I was talking about this, but the idea of just how disjointed like the story is.
Yeah, that was
you and I.
Yeah, we were just like, yeah, it's a great series, but that fucking story after so many.
I need to go to a wiki and read it, you know, like in depth to remember where I am and stuff.
Well, yeah, like my number one example is you got literally Sora, Roxas, Ventus, Vanitas, and it's like that right there. For those who know anything about Kingdom Hearts and can explain that, like that is the summary of the story and how just convoluted it becomes. For me, I definitely am very hesitant to trust this release window. The only reason I really think it might be the case is because when I was listening to some interviews with Tetsuya Nomura, who's directing this game, he did say that the reason it was taking so long for them to start really showing stuff is because Square Enix like essentially put this project on the back burner and had them redo, like, for example, in the first year of development, they had to switch to a whole new engine. From there, they had to, like, work on other things for the time being. So it's only really recently, these past couple of years, or 3 years, it seems like, based off what he said, has been getting its full attention and focus that it deserves. So if we really couple in those initial years of development with the full force, maybe 2018 sounds a little more believable. The other thing is I look at Final Fantasy 15, and hilarious enough, that got another like 2-month delay when it was initially announced. Like, yeah, it's coming out September, no more delays. But you know, I feel like when you look at that, how long that took to go into development, I think that was another 5-year project game, and that did go over a serious overhaul. That, you know, just based off how Square Enix has operated as a company in the past, that maybe this has become a lot more plausible. But
and they've seen success from it, right? Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah,
like
Final Fantasy 15
delays
sold really well.
And Hitman has been pretty good with, you know, so it's like I think for them, and because they delayed some of that. License. So, well, that's true too. Yeah,
it mustn't have done that.
Get into that. No, it did. That's what they remember their excuse. It did so well that like they didn't want to keep a hold of it, and I was like, what the fuck? That makes no sense. And then I read up the financials. I guess it does make sense to them, but it's a fucking fucked up
really
story.
Random thing, right? But
so weird.
Maybe they're going down the line of Mojang pre-acquisition, because I remember listening to some interviews with Notch, who said that there's literal, like, we don't have the capacity to continue moving this franchise going forward because it's so big. And the only one that can really do it, like actually do it justice, is someone like a PlayStation or an Xbox, and that's one of them who acquired it. So that could be what's going on. I don't know. I have no fucking idea.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump off onto the other subject.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
Lone,
yeah.
I know you're a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. I'd love to hear.
I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan.
Yeah, let's hear it. Are you intrigued at all? This is going to be It's going to be the first time it's a multi-platform release. Okay, Mr. I'm a kid on the inside doesn't give a fuck about a game where you explore Disney planets.
I don't know. It just doesn't.
It doesn't tickle your fancy. You didn't see that Toy Story trailer and go like, "Oh fuck, I gotta get in on that."
Look, I've never been a big fan of Kingdom Hearts. Okay, this is me being honest, and there are too many games on my list to play before that would even come close. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Matty.
Mr. Matty, yeah. Apologies.
Isn't that your name on YouTube? Damn it.
Yeah, you know me personally though. So. That's the other thing. People always ask, whenever I've personally talked about Kingdom Hearts 3, I'll get a comment or two asking, like, should I try to get into the series? And it's always like, my answer is yes, but then it's like, fuck, you have a lot of work ahead of you. You got a lot of games to play. You could trim off some of the fat with, like, Recoded and Chain of Memories, I feel. I feel those are almost like kind of throwaway games to me personally. But then even at that point, you were playing 1, 2, Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, and then 0.2, and then the movie. It's like, it's so much, and it's so all over the place, where you can kind of follow the narrative thread, but then there's so many characters that have multiple layers of purpose in each of these universes, and they're all going to come into Kingdom Hearts 3 in one way or another, so I'm curious to see how Nomura ties it all together. But it's just one of those things where, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're curious about Kingdom Hearts, I always say give the franchise a shot. Kingdom Hearts 1 hasn't aged that well, as far as I'm concerned. 2 is really the end-all, be-all. Birth by Sleep is really good as well. So if you can just kind of get your way through 1 and then try 2 and Birth by Sleep, I think it'll be rewarding enough. And those are kind of like the main things you need to know for the Kingdom Hearts. And then play Dream Drop Distance, because that basically leads into 3. So many spin-offs. It's a fucking pain in the ass. Anything on Kingdom Hearts, though? Anything else?
Maybe, wouldn't it be cool? Well, it might not be for everybody else, but I think it'd be cool if all of it did come together in 3. As in, they sort of solidified the story, made everything more cohesive within the story, like explained why it wasn't, and then whatever the plot is, sort of like drew everything back so that they could start sort of at 3 as the new number 1. And the reason why I say that is because you're naming all these names of shit that I don't even know what you're fucking talking about. And I've played some of them, and I'm like, wait, who the fuck? Because they're so disjointed. It's like jumping into Game of Thrones and starting halfway through the series and then fucking jump into the start.
Yeah.
So it would be great if they were like, okay, we're gonna sort of solidify everything in 3 and get people into a narrative they can understand. Because when you have names like you explained with these weird side names, that's another thing. Whenever I talk to gamers and I start giving them like subtitle names, that's when they get confused. Because like, wait, like Star Wars Empire Strikes Back makes sense, but once you start getting 9 or 10 of them and then you get 45 books, people start getting really confused. And so solidifying back to the 3rd, to this one, bringing everything together and starting fresh from here, could, I think, bring in a ton of people, especially now that graphically you can do it. Graphically we're at a point where we can bring Toy Story in and make it not look funny.
Yeah.
Make it, you know what I mean?
Like it.
It
no,
looks,
I know.
It's very close, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good point, especially because I don't want to ruin too much for people out there. What I'm talking about, though, is some things that piss me off about the narrative. I won't say it, but the ending to Dream Drop Distance, that's one of the most silly fucking endings I've ever experienced in a video game. It's so silly, I almost want to spoil it, but just in case, I won't.
Don't.
But on top of that, I agree that it seems like they're going for something a little more straightforward in Kingdom Hearts 3, because they're talking about like finding this black box, and once again a new narrative thread was introduced when they brought out 2.8 HD remix, which came with this movie for Unchained Key. And Unchained Key is all the way at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts. I wonder how many viewers we're losing by the second here. And during that movie,
gone.
The Master of Masters, creative name I know, has this fucking black box, or is it Lucius? I don't know, or Luciu. I don't know. someone's got a black box, and now in Kingdom Hearts 3 they're looking for it. And in the end of this movie, you just see Lucio walking away with the box. And you're like, all right, well, where's the master? Master's, what's Lucio doing with the box? What's in the fucking box? You don't know. And it's like, all right, Kingdom Hearts 3, they're talking about the black box in like every trailer. It's like, okay, that's the thing they're going for. That's a little more straightforward. What purpose that serves and what's inside that box and what it'll do, I don't know. That's where it could get really complicated, but I don't know. I agree entirely. It just seems fucking ridiculous now. Anyway, let's move on to something we can all get involved with. How about Doom DLC? So what they have done with Doom is made all of their multiplayer map packs free. They've also revamped the multiplayer progression, and they called it Update 6.66.
How fitting.
Yes, excellent. Most excellent. Just real fucking creative.
That'll do really well in the South. A bunch of religious people are reading that going like, you ain't getting that from my boy. my mom would be like, get 2 for Karak. I like the idea of doing that for any game, you know, after a while releasing the DLC and just being like, here you go. I love that idea. So I'm always behind anything like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good as well. I mean, after a while, a season pass becomes more expensive than the main game. You know, there's an issue,
redundant.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that happened. So I think during the Steam sales, you could buy a bunch of Fallout games for less than the price of Fallout 4's season pass.
Yeah, there was
anyways,
there was a flash sale on PS4, I remember, and it was like Fallout 4 was $15, and the season pass was discounted by like, I forgot what it was, but it ended up being like $40, and I thought to myself,
so eventually this is always a good idea. My question though is, where the fuck is the single player DLC? Because I'm leaning towards this being like the story being continued in the next Doom, but just the way it ended, I wasn't satisfied. That's all.
I wasn't either. My guess was rather that during E3 this year, I thought they were gonna, and there was no hints, I just thought it was a good idea, that they would do what they did with Wolfenstein: The Old Blood and release a short kind of game.
But that's what they're doing with Dishonored. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, it was just the wrong IP, I guess. But I mean, Dishonored, it seems like it has more of a narrative purpose in that game.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, because I think her name's Billy something. She's pretty important to the Dishonored story and lore, and she has like a past that a lot of Dishonored fans have wanted to know about. So I think it'll be really good. But with Doom, it's like, what do they do? Do they just wait for Doom 2 and pick up from there, or do they, you know, fill in the gaps a little bit? And like, really, what they do is set themselves up for another cliffhanger. If they gave us more single player DLC, they'd like add a couple of missions, and they just end up waiting for Doom 2 anyway.
What intrigues me really is why, and I don't know whether this is like a Bethesda as a publisher decision, but you had Wolfenstein with the new was it Old Blood? Sorry, Wolfenstein with the Old Blood, and then you have the Dishonored 2 expansion. I mean, what happened to the kind of traditional smaller piecemeal DLC? That's like $10, $15, and then you go on. Like, I don't know why Bethesda is starting to push, and not that it's a bad or a good thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
These kind of expansions for their games as opposed to traditional DLC. Do they make more money off of that? I don't know.
Because I think it gets the hype of a new game. Look at the new Uncharted. I don't think that that's technically a full game. I think they're selling it for $40. It's a Lost Legacy. Yeah. It has nothing to do with Nathan Drake. But it's more Uncharted. They say it's not enough for its own full game, but it's too big to be an expansion or DLC. Yeah. I think that's a crock of shit, because I look at, for example, like Shivering Isles. You know, that is a fucking huge piece of content. And you could sell that on its own, but they didn't. They made it, you know, a part of the game, really, and as DLC. It is
weird as well, because for the Dishonored one, I don't even think it's called Dishonored 2 blah. I think it's called Dishonored Death of the Outside.
It is, because we talked about this. I was confused. I thought it was DLC for the first one.
So, and I think everyone did too. Now here's the kicker: if you have to download Dishonored 2 first before you can play that, then it's part of Dishonored 2. If you don't, if you can download it separately. If it's purely standalone, then that makes more sense. Then, to be honest, from what you were saying, Matty, it's more of a prequel to Dishonored 2.
Yeah, I think so. because they had Dowd. I thought he was gone at the end of the first one, if I remember correctly. It's been so long since I played the first one and its DLC.
Yeah, I still haven't played the second one.
Second one's good, man. Second one, especially because they finally just recently finished really ironing out all the issues. It's a fucking great game.
And it's a much better game right now.
Yeah,
that's good because it compared to release.
That's the thing. I didn't have any like tech issues, but I know a lot of people did, and I was like, "That's unacceptable." But like, I was fortunate enough. So the first time I played it at launch, it was really good for me. So I was really happy with it.
Well, that's like Prey, because I know some people had issues with Prey.
And Prey was
and I
perfect.
didn't have any, and it was so. You know, I always tell people. I just had somebody this morning who got mad at me for saying a game wasn't working, Fortnite, and I was being belligerent about it. I was like, I'll say whatever the fuck I want because your experience has nothing to do with mine. Like nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what's unfortunate. I would love it if we all
always
bought a book and we were all missing page 20, but that's not what happens in video games.
Yeah, that's the thing. People always like try to chalk it up to bias. You know, like a couple of people are like, "Oh, you just like Bethesda." I'm like, "No, it's my fucking game ran fine, so I like the product I had." Like that's
Fallout 4. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Fallout 4 ran fine for me.
No,
so
I was talking about Dishonored. Dishonored.
Oh,
dude.
I still get people. I still get people attacking me over my Fallout 4 review, and I'm like, guys, I could pretend I had bugs because that'd be fun. Because it'd be I like to lie to you guys. But the fact is I'm not gonna lie. It actually worked, and there was a lot of people who were like, well, I had this, and I'm all okay. Then do your own fucking review, like that. Mm-hmm. But what are you talking to me for? I mean, and that's it is unfortunate though. It is.
Even looking back on purely Bethesda games, I remember Fallout 3 ran great for me. New Vegas ran a bit crappy after a while, especially when loading save files. Dishonored ran shitty. Prey ran fine. Fallout 4 ran fine. Like you can never get it right, and everyone's going to have a different experience.
Yeah, Fallout 4. I mean, I have some people who would just absolutely will not work for them, and I think to myself, I'm like, I was shocked how stable that game was for me. And I've seen some of the glitch montages, and I'm like, yeah, that's horrible because it seems like a lot of people have them. But I was like, I thought it was such a well done game in that regard.
Yeah. Well, look at TellTale. I test almost all my games on the 3 different systems, and one TellTale game, same game, will run differently on all 3. And so on the low power system, TellTale runs fine, but on my high power system with the 1080, it runs worse. And so I always have to say, and every time I review a TellTale title, I have to break it down and be like, there is a chance that you could have a Cray supercomputer with fucking Howl inside and it still would not run right. But somebody over here with their Apple II, it's working. And I don't know why that occurs. It's Windows, I think, sometimes too. I think it's your operating system. It's the hundreds of drivers we do audio stuff. Dude, I have like 85 ASIO drivers for music, so
it's ridiculous.
It happens. It's sad.
I have to ask you, Karak, really quickly. All right, do you recommend the Guardians of the Galaxy TellTale game?
Yeah. As a whole, I'm thinking I am. I have been reviewing them separate. The first one I thought was pretty good. The second one I wasn't a big fan of, but I have a soft spot also for Porter, Scott Porter, from Friday Night Lights. He's Star-Lord. I thought he did a damn good job because I'm pretty nitpicky on who takes over voices. Where I'll be like, yeah, sorry, doesn't sound like him. Like I don't like.
Wait, they didn't get the original characters in the movies to do the voiceovers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's a no-brainer.
That's weird because I think in Game of Thrones they got the original actors to do their voice parts. So
you always have it in like Dragon Ball games. I mean, for the most part, I believe, anyways.
You know what I bet you it is, guys? It's absolutely money. I mean, can you, for example, Chris Avallone? I always pronounce his last name wrong. But when we were talking to him at GDC and he was talking about working with Ron Perlman, he was talking about, you only have a very small amount of time with a guy who is getting paid a fucking ridiculous amount of money. So you better have your shit straight. And I was dawning on me one day. I'm like, oh yeah, just trying to get Chris Pratt in. Hey, Chris, come on over and voice,
Sure.
Sure.
I charge $1,000 a minute. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, back to the Doom DLC, because I just thought, what happens to the people who already purchased the DLC? Do they get compensated in any way? Or are they just like, hey, thanks for purchasing?
They got to play it before.
They got to play it, yeah. That's it.
I've never been a believer in any way, shape, or form.
We've had to talk about this, haven't we, Karak?
I was going to say.
Oh, because I don't think Matty was on that. No, Matty was not on the podcast.
I remember because I listened.
Because I went out of
shit in the beginning. I remember that.
Yeah. And I there's very few instances you could ever tell me that a person deserves some kind of like
the one
refund.
caveat that I'll say is if someone bought the DLC like the day before the price drop, I feel bad for them. I really would. Yeah. And usually in that instance, the developer will be like, all right, whoever bought it on this week can get it for that price or whatever. But if you bought it like at launch or several months ago and you're complaining that there's a sale now, come on. Like, no.
I guess it's just like
you can feel
different
like,
if it was on
bad.
sale because someone's still paying compared to it just being completely given away for free when you might have been an investor in that. Like I'm a believer in rather it's not like, oh, you get your money back, but more so like, hey, you invested in our product early when maybe not as many people were, or you were just one of the first people. Like, here's a couple, like in Doom multiplayer, they do a bunch of boosts and stuff. Like, here's 50 boosts, like double XP, double points, awesome. Shit like that.
Here's some unique skins or something like
that.
Yeah, but then you know what you'd get then? You'd get people complaining about everyone else getting new skins, and then there's no way that they can get it.
But no, it's not only that. It's the fact that we're also ignoring, and many people do when we bitch about this, is that many of those early adopters got, pre-order skins and shit too. So they got different stuff than the people who later get $5 off or $10. I mean, are we going to look at every Humble bundle and say, oh, this game's $4 instead of $40. Here's $36 back? Like, fuck you. You bought it early. You enjoyed it. That's great. Like, I bought my car a while ago. Does that mean that if the car drops, I'm just going to drive in and be like, I want $4,000? I mean, I chose when to purchase that. I chose. And I know that the normal consumer system allows for them to drop their fucking price of their own product at any time.
Yeah, and it's kind of different because but
$1 is different than if a day early. I was going to say if it is the next day, that is slightly different. I
wasn't saying it was different to yours. I was going to mention something else. I was thinking about how when games are remastered, and usually on PC, people that bought the previous games get the remastered version for free. In my head, I was like, is this similar? And then I'm like, well, no, it's kind of different because it's something new that person that already bought it doesn't necessarily have, as in the remastered version, and that's what they're getting for free. But when we're talking about in this instance, it's a DLC that person does already have, they already purchased. So what actually can they get for free here? Like they're not going to be reimbursed with the money that they pay. That would be silly.
I just think like one weapon skin.
I agree. I completely agree.
That's it. I wouldn't blow it out of proportion personally. I wouldn't say like, what the fuck is this? Are you kidding me? Because like
are you saying
said, you chose when to sit down and buy it, but like I just think
how long though, Matty? I mean, I don't understand because this is an old game. So how long? I mean, how long until you stop offering people shit for enjoying the time? I mean, they've been playing multiplayer and having a good time with the game for 6 months. I mean, so I look at that's their return.
Like Battleborn. A lot of people paid $60 for it, and they did the free trial thing, which ended up just basically making the game free to play. And like a lot of fans who were invested in that game were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And
that's
so,
a big deal.
I guess it really depends on the platform. This is Doom.
It does.
It kind of died off a little quickly, so it going free now will bring in players like it intended to, and I doubt any early investors are actually really pissed. I haven't seen anyone pissed. So I guess
Evolve,
it's just
right? Evolve, Matty. Didn't Evolve do the same thing? That
they did.
3 versus 4.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Because I bought it.
When you said Evolve, I was like, the PR? I forget. No, that's how quickly I forgot about it.
Sorry, I played it right up until they turned off the servers.
Really?
Yeah, I actually liked it, but I didn't think it was the greatest game in the world. I can play a lot of different titles. I mean, but I guess you guys are right. It does depend on the game. I just think that once you start getting into the nitty gritty of choosing which games matters, and then it starts to get disastrous. But the Battleborn was a really good example of like my idea being sort of stupid because I think I would argue with Matty and say, in the form of Battleborn, when the game went free to play, then you need to look at the people who bought your game and go, you didn't refund it. We're gonna give you something.
It's definitely situational because, like, for example, while we're talking about Battleborn, that game was pretty much dead on arrival. It was a great game, but it was basically dead on arrival. Game. I like it so much, dude. And so you gotta, in that circumstance, I think, thank your fans who were there. Yeah. Having your back, keeping your game afloat from the start. And, in this case, Doom was really well received. A lot of people played it. I'm sure a lot of people bought the DLC. So I'm sure it wasn't, that big of a deal for it to go free, because I think more people were like, oh, sweet, it's, more players going online. Because I think of it like when Overwatch does a free weekend or something like that on a PS4, Xbox One, or whatever, and a PC. I don't know if they do it on PC, but then like you see more players hopping in, and it's like, all right, let's go on Overwatch this weekend. We got a bunch of new people in to play with. So, it's definitely circumstantial.
Does Lone, do you play Overwatch?
There was a period that I did play Overwatch. Now, honestly, this weekend I'm watching the Overwatch World Cup, which is taking place in Sydney, Australia. It's actually a lot of fun to watch.
I was actually going to laugh and say, do you guys get excited when new people come into Overwatch so you can kill them all? Are you guys like,
oh, yeah,
because I used to do that.
I'm not back to the days of Call of Duty with Christmas noobs. Go on around Christmas break and just hop on and just fuck up the new kids.
Your kill ratio is just awesome.
Yeah. Make them fucking hate the game. Question why their mom fucking bought it for them. Just really upset them. Ruin their Christmas. It's the best feeling. You're just dropping these sick kill streaks.
But I think
your ego.
Personally, I think that's just a niche hobby myself.
You mean niche?
Only some people are going to get that joke. We just lost like 30 subscribers.
Yep. There they go. On my.
Oh, man.
All right. So next topic is a big combination of something that's been a trend on the podcast for weeks now. We wanted to make sure we didn't start off the podcast with it because we've been talking about it so much, but we would be remiss to skip out on it. So I have all the information here. Let's start off with the Sega Genesis and Atari Flashback, which were revealed. And I'm taking this bit from a article I saw online. So it said, I wanted to make sure, or I'm sorry, this wasn't a news article. This is an email I got. I wanted to make sure you saw the news that AT Games today announced pricing for its fall 2017 lineup of classic gaming hardware, including their premium HD versions of their classic gaming consoles. The Atari Flashback 8 Gold for $80 and the Sega Genesis Flashback for $80. Each console, fucking updates. Each console includes an amazing selection of built-in Atari 2600 and Sega Genesis 16-bit games, respectively, as well as an impressive range of innovative features, including wireless controllers. I'm sorry. I didn't fucking read that part. I'm sorry. These consoles, along with additional products, include the Atari Flashback Portable Game Player for $60 and the Sega Ultimate Portable Game Player for $60 as well, and will be available at all major retailers in fall 2017. So you can get a portable version for both of those, and you can get the setup at your home entertainment theater section with really innovative technology such as wireless controllers. So,
bet you $1 million they're saying wireless, and it's innovative because so many people complained about the classic.
Yeah.
3-foot controller or some crazy. I mean, the wire was insanely short to the point of being almost laughable. But I hate the trend. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to be negative. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. I don't like selling to nostalgia.
So, I don't hate the trend. I mean, I was right on it with the first NES Classic, and this is kind of the stuff that we mentioned a lot before. But now that I don't play my NES Classic, it's a trend that I'm probably not going to jump back on.
Right.
Maybe, and this is the next thing that we'll talk about. Maybe this 64 Classic, but even then, I doubt it. Just
right.
Anyways, if I start talking about Virtual Console, I'll cry.
Yeah, that was the other topic I was going to get into. Is on top of that, there was a trademarking by Nintendo. It had like an N64 controller in it, so presumably we're going to see the N64 Classic. We're not shocked.
No, we're not shocked.
What games do you think we're going to see on that?
I think we're going to see a trademark for the Switch actually having games at some point, which would be great. all this, I'm sorry, all this stuff. Come on, put it on the Switch, man.
I agree.
I agree. If we are talking about
I'm getting madder and madder. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, the 64 Classic. The issue that I see is with licensing, because how many games are on the 64 that were licensed third party that might not be able to even come to the 64 Classic? So you got GoldenEye, you've got Perfect Dark.
And Perfect Dark was on the Rare Replay, so I don't think that'll be on the N64 Classic.
Exactly right. And there were a bunch of other games that I just can't think of.
Jet Force Gemini. That was a great game.
It was Banjo-Kazooie Rare as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So many Rare games. Like, you're not going to have them on there.
So a ton of Rare
Super Mario 64. I think that was it. The 3D
they're
one, we could run around.
They'd have Super Mario 64. They'd have, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Spider-Man 64. So
they'd have
good.
Super Smash. They'd have Pokemon Snap. Like, they'd have all the typical games.
If they don't put Pokemon Stadium on that shit.
Pokemon Stadium, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that game is fucking good. I know people love the main Pokemon entries. I do too, but Pokemon Stadium is like up there. Like, it's I like it just as much. It's so good.
And what else, though? I mean, Killer Instinct probably won't go on there.
Yeah, because Killer Instinct, there's a modern version on Xbox. I mean, it's not that they can't re-release it. Actually, don't they have the classic
It's all licensing
version?
issues. It's all licensing. That's the problem.
Let me just, I got this. Let me just Google the best Nintendo 64 games. And you've named a good chunk of them, but let's just see if we're forgetting anything. Donkey Kong, I just thought that one.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
That'd be fine.
Okay, good old Wikipedia. So yeah, blah blah blah.
Star Fox 64.
Star Fox, I guess. Wave Race, maybe. Yoshi's Story, Mario Party definitely needs to be on there. Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire, never played that.
Neither have I. Apparently,
I think we've covered off the big games.
Karak.
Yeah, I never played that. Cruising USA, but that was Nintendo published.
Oh man, Cruising USA was so good.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. Because here's the thing, though, right? From what I'm reading here, I mean, when you look at Perfect Dark,
Stadium too. What?
So, Perfect Dark was published by Rare, even though it was released on that. But then when you talk about Diddy Kong Racing and Donkey Kong 64, that was developed by Rare but published by Nintendo. So that it seems like here there's a lot of instances where a game was a Rare game, like GoldenEye, but it was actually published by Nintendo, so they probably still have the rights to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like,
the WWE game.
Such a tricky thing because, I mean, you look at KOTOR. I think a really good chunk of the reason that game hasn't been remastered or re-released, rather, is simply because of licensing. That's what always, anytime it has been asked, whether it was Phil Spencer, when Peter Moore was at EA, it was always, they said, yeah, we'd love to, but licensing, because it's like tied in with Microsoft and then Lucasfilms and then Obsidian's in there now. And
although I will say that if they really wanted to make it happen, they'd make it happen.
Yeah, there's always a way. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Fucking do it. I've been patient. I love how I've twisted this into my own little fucking thing. Any Sega Genesis games, like I didn't play much of the Sega Genesis, so the first thing that obviously comes to mind would be
Ghouls
Sonic.
and Ghosts. Capcom Ghouls and Ghosts is one of the most fantastic. I think that's probably considered the best version of it. Altered Beast.
See, what would be a really good thing to, I think, for a classic one would be like a Dreamcast, like a system that didn't really get its due. Put like Shenmue 1 and 2, or no, I'm sorry, 2 was on the original Xbox. Put Shenmue 1 on there. Put that House of the Dead game where you just walk around and fucking shoot zombies everywhere.
There are so many good Dreamcast games. It's ridiculous, too, when you go and look. That would be very fun.
Like
that. So if we're talking about Sega Genesis, Aladdin, did you ever play that Aladdin game that really, from my memory, was really hard? Yeah. I can't remember.
A game from back then was really hard. I'd be shocked.
No,
No, I'm kidding. Because a lot of games back then were much more difficult.
Yeah. And then you had Mortal Kombat on there, which I believe that was the version that had blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
The other one had green slime.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nintendo one was cut down.
Of course.
Unfortunately.
They had Techno Cop, too.
Yeah. I was never really a Sega kind of guy.
Yeah, I was all Sega. So, like, but I hate this idea of nostalgia shit. Like, I still won't buy this. I love the idea of those games coming to the Nintendo Switch or something.
Mm-hmm.
Would love it. Can you imagine a new Ghouls and Ghosts, like, up-resed, fucking smoothed out graphics like Fire Pro Wrestling?
Well, see, what they should do is instead of this idea hit me, and I kind of pitched it last week, I think it was, but I don't think I explained it well enough, and this different version of the idea hit me. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the I think it was called like the Sega Genesis collection or something like that. It was like a 360 PS3 game, and it came with like 30 plus old Sega Genesis games.
Yeah.
Why don't they? And I'm sure this is Karak, what you've been really saying, or
that is what I've been really.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say because you're like, or somewhere else. I was like, why doesn't Sega take a bunch of these games?
I don't know.
And put them on a disc, and for example, just put it on the PS4, Xbox One, Switch. Like
that's what I would love that, because I think you would remove some of the hardware cost, and you would keep people in the same ecosystem too.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
I mean by that is you're not going to another system. Right. And so if they're in your Xbox or your PS4 and you're playing that, what if you hit a button and there's the Sega collection, but then there's also the Capcom collection? I don't want to resell a bunch of nostalgia. I'm just saying, if we're doing it, I just feel you should do it right. You should do it in a way that...
This is the interesting thing, though. I mean, with the Atari console and the Sega console, it's a bit different. Because if they're releasing their games onto a Switch, onto an Xbox, onto a PlayStation, they have to pay the fees to each of the platform holders, right? They easily, I guarantee you, they'd make more money selling these older consoles, because they don't have to pay any licensing fees or anything like that to the platform holders. But when we're talking about Nintendo's own classic, then I think the argument becomes, well, you want to support the Switch and get more games on there, so people are buying the Switch. They invest in your current ecosystem, etc.
Could be.
So it's a bit different for others.
I mean, they kind of tried to do it with Street Fighter 2, right? In a way.
Yeah.
But I mean, they fucking upscaled the shit out of that price. I think that was like a $60 game, wasn't it? We've talked about this.
It was pretty high up, and
like
the one thing that annoyed me about that is that the menu is 60. Like, it's the full resolution, but when you're in the actual game, it's black bars on the side.
Yeah.
Wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah, surely they could have worked that out.
Nah,
it was jarring to me. I was like, is it my Switch that's the issue here?
Especially if you're going handheld, that just shrinks it down even more.
And it shrinks it down even more. Exactly right. Yeah.
That sucks. Thank God I never bought that.
Again, I was listening to Digital Foundry's video about it, explaining why that's the case. Like, this was not the original Street Fighter. It was like the Xbox 360 port that was a certain resolution. So when they moved to this, it was this. And I'm like, just make it 16:9 resolution.
Make it for the Switch, and then suddenly things are different.
Especially, charging that price, right?
That's what I'm saying. If they were going to do like $20, like, okay, black bars.
Yeah,
I mean, it would still piss me off, but it's for a much lesser price.
But we're talking, and for people that don't know, we're talking black bars for the up-res version, not the classic theme. That's obvious. Like, you're not going to change that. Keep it as the classic. Was it 4:3 resolution? But yeah,
I mean, black bars don't throw me off too bad. Like, I just a week ago completely binged through Jade Empire. Oh my God, that game is fucking good. It was my first time playing it. But I hooked up my 360 and I was playing on my TV with like giant black bars on the side. It was on a 4:3. Like, it looked pretty shitty, but if the game's good enough, I usually don't care. But when I'm paying $40-ish or something like that, I feel like that pricing's off. It's a whole different story. And
yeah, well, it's different. I mean, when you go back and play older games, obviously I'm fine with black bars. That's different. But when a game's being sold nowadays, and you don't have it reach the edges of the screen, it's not game breaking for me. I'm like, oh, I can't play this. It's so ugly. But it's just one of those really small nitpicky things. That's all. You okay, Matty?
Yeah, I was just laughing. I don't know why. Like, have you ever heard someone say something and it repeats in your head? They're like, that was actually kind of funny. Because you were just like, it's so ugly like that. I was like, damn, he sounded really fucking passionate about that. Like, he sounded like he really believed that. He had to convince himself.
It's like people that, and anytime their game drops below 60 frames, and I kind of get like this at times, like, it's fucking unplayable!
Yeah, like when it slightly dips to like 48, you're like you get really anxious, you're like, stop, I'm getting really
shaking
stressed.
In your chair.
Dude, I'm guilty of that. Like when I'm playing 60 and it just drops, I'm like, oh no, stop, please. I'm like, I wait a second. I'm like, all right.
Recent story, I was playing Shadow of Mordor, and for a while, I think it was, my game was reaching 60 frames, so I turned off the frame rate counter. And then as we got to the second map, it dropped slightly, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I checked my frame rate counter. I was playing at like 45 frames for like an hour or so, thinking, yeah, I knew there was something wrong. But then when I tried to get it back, apparently the whole time for my entire game, I was playing at like 55 frames and not noticing. So it doesn't matter unless you check the fucking frame rate counter every second.
Yeah. That's why I leave mine off. I can tell when it goes from like 30 to, below 60 usually. But if it's like that subtle, like 55.
If it's like single-digit frames,
it's like I don't even notice at that point. On to our next topic. CoD World War II Zombies recently got its reveal trailer. It seemed a little more grotesque, grim horror than usual.
I was like, oh, sorry, did I click on the Evil Within trailer?
Yeah, I was confused. Do you keep in tune with the zombies community? Was this like a general direction the whole thing was trending in or something? Like, that's what confused me. I was like, is this supposed to be kind of shocking? Because I was kind of caught off guard.
I mean, the last zombies that I saw, it was like zombies, but not nice and colorful. Like the items were much more lively, I guess. I don't know. I could be speaking out my ass here, but it seems like this shift is different, like completely different to zombies as we've seen it in the last game. And I think this is just a general trend with Call of Duty as a game. Like the last games, like you had in the multiplayer, your characters dabbing and shit, and colorful camos and clothes and all of that stuff. So now with World War II, it's like the campaign is back to basics. It's nothing colorful. It's just straight war. And Zombies is doing something very different too. And I like that, to be honest. It's fucking zombies.
The wheel in a way.
Yeah.
There's a thing now that when you reinvent the wheel a little too much, you begin to lose an identity, or you just make what ends up being a flawed experiment, I feel.
I was never a fan of when Call of Duty... I don't want to say it was catering to a younger audience, but I feel like that's kind of what was happening, because a lot of the stuff, it was like, this. It's just weird to me. It's weird when my characters can I guess it's kind of like Destiny, and it's funny after a while, but when you make your characters dance, it's just weird. It's just strange. Mm-hmm. And then all these real colorful camos and all that kind of stuff.
I completely agree. I liked what I saw in the trailer, though. It definitely left me curious. I was like, I kind of want to try that. But my thing is, like, the trailer is portraying it as this kind of, like, really heavy thing. But when we're actually sitting down and playing Nazi zombies, is it just going to be that typical, like, here's your score counter up top? It's, like, the way they portrayed it was almost like you said. It was like, am I watching The Evil Within? Like, it looked like that kind of survival horror where you were backed into a corner just lighting up whatever came in your path. But like when you got this 200 ammo counted gun and you're just mowing down zombies, is it going to lose that flavor that it displayed in the trailer is what I'm kind of concerned about and also curious about more so than anything.
What do you think, Karak? I'm talking to him.
I've seen nothing on this at all. Haven't even seen the trailer, so I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I liked the last Zombies, so if they change it, great, and if they don't, great. So I'll be interested to see the trailer. I didn't even know. I saw Maddie's note, and that was the first time I even realized that they had released something new. I've been sort of had my head down doing some stuff. I like the Zombies games. I think that the only way that you're going to get the atmospheric change Maddie's talking about is by some mechanics changes, and I don't know if they'll do that.
The actual DNA of Call of Duty.
Right. It could be, where they decide that that's, the way to do it too. So I mean, it's all up in the air. I've always felt that they're so different sometimes, the single player and the multiplayer and the zombies, that it's okay for them to experiment a little bit more though as well. So if they are just experimenting with zombies, that maybe
I mean, if they want to retain the kind of theme of the trailer in zombies, I think one of the major things that will have to change is the way zombies spawn, because in previous games, like, sometimes they take forever to come into your area. Like, they'll take ages to break through the boards. I know eventually that becomes much quicker. But I think if when you're playing, you had zombies that come out of the ground and grab you by the leg, or just pop out of fucking nowhere and try and legitimately scare you. And then, of course, focus on the story where it is this kind of fucked up, messed up theme. Then
imagine... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, and then it has a better job of retaining that theme.
I agree. I was just thinking about, like, how would they do that? And it dawned on me, one of the greatest, like, horror movies that I remember when I growing up that had a moment like this, but the entire movie was Poltergeist, where the girl falls in the swimming pool and the fucking skeletons are coming up, and I'm like, it would be so cool if one of their levels was like a ski lodge that had been built on top of a cemetery. Like there was a reason for those guys coming through the ground. Because one of the things that bothers me is, to me, horror doesn't work if you're just throwing scary stuff on the screen. In fact, that's where I laugh. That's what I find funny. So to me, horror has to make sense and logistically make sense and go like, okay, this is why these characters are here. This is what's going on. This is why this could possibly happen. I love your idea of them coming out of the ground. I mean, the idea of like, if you're in a wood cabin, like the Evil Dead, you're running around and they're coming through the ground because, you know, this is all like an old graveyard. That kind of stuff would be fantastic. I just don't know if they're catered to people like me. There's that middle ground that they always go to, which is visuals. They don't go to the fiction. They don't go, okay, we need to have a reason for this a lot of times. And so for a lot of us, it's just like, it's just zombies. It's just slower. And then we move on. So it's going to be interesting to see, man. See, I would love for them to dive in.
Building off of that theme of trying to keep that horror vibes from the trailer into the new zombies, you know, in the beginning of every zombies match, you're aiming for the headshots. You're trying to conserve ammo for the later rounds and also rack up points because you get more for headshots, I believe. I mean, some people will shoot the leg and knife, but regardless. And I wonder if perhaps you give less ammo. Perhaps it's not just on the wall. You actually have to find it. Not just through the random drops on zombies, but, you know, there's a different way to acquire ammo that makes it into a much more survival-focused experience. Because that's the thing, is the tense nature of surviving in Nazi zombies would still be there, but the mechanics, like you said, Karak, if you really want that, you know, maybe they could change it that way. So it's about finding ammo constantly. Because, I mean, sometimes you do get low on ammo, but usually, like, someone's going to drop an ammo box, or you can just grab it off the wall, something along those lines. And so I was thinking, like, well, maybe if it's just a much more scarce resource. I mean, that's the key to really any survival horror game. Just make the resources really scarce and precise on when they need them, and it makes all the difference.
But that's the thing. That's a big mechanic change for zombies.
Exactly. No, that's what we were saying. Is it's huge. Like, I don't know if they do that.
Exactly, and I don't think they do it, or I don't think they should do it, because especially when you're playing zombies at bigger rounds, where this is how it goes down, right? You get to a certain point where you have to find your nice loop. All right, you're looping around, you're trailing a bunch of zombies, and you have a loop where you can always pick up ammo with a pretty reliable gun. And that's the way you're progressing to, like, rounds 30, 40, 50. Like, when I was doing Doris, and, like, I haven't got, like, real high, but playing on round 70, that's what you have to do, otherwise you're not surviving, right? And if I couldn't get enough ammo, that would be fucking disaster. Like, you couldn't play at those higher rounds if ammo was that scarce.
But here's the thing. Correct, but those higher rounds, I mean, that's really a self-limiting system. If you can't get to those higher rounds, then more people aren't getting to those higher rounds, thus lower rounds are higher. So, I mean, they could do that. Yeah. If you're getting to 70s and they're like, we're going to make this hard, you can only, and there's more of a sense of accomplishment getting to 30 than 70, that might pull in a particular type of gamer that they're looking for. I think our question is like, what are they looking for? Is this real? This is the thing, though. I mean, is this a real change?
Well, even with the current zombies, it is a challenge to get to 30. It's a challenge to get to 25 if you don't know what you're doing, right? The skill in going from a 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 is being able to have the resource. Like, you have to resource manage a little bit. Like, you can't just be wasting your pack-a-punch ammo like crazy, right? Because it's so expensive to re-up and get your ammunition back. But the thing is, it's still possible when you're at those later levels, and you still need to have the skill to be able to trail a bunch of zombies. If you didn't have ammo or a lot of ammo completely, there's nothing you can do about that. You need ammo. And at the very least with zombies, from the last zombies game that I played, you were still able to pretty easily get ammo. Even if it wasn't with your best gun, it was still a gun off a wall that you could still try and kill some zombies. Yeah. So it's a big change. If
the other thought I had was that when you look at World at War Zombies, which was set in the World War II era where it all originated, that was a much different zombies compared to Black Ops, which I thought was still good zombies, but like it's always been pretty good as far as I'm concerned when it came to Treyarch. But you know, the World at War Zombies was a much more serious take. I remember like on what was the name of that? The Nino Shima, something like that.
Hold up.
I gotta know the name. Nino.
Shinonuma.
Okay. On that map, there was like right in the beginning, there was 3 radios you can activate, and they started talking about like Darius, and it was like a really serious kind of thing that really set the tone of like, oh fuck, like this is some real shit. And so I'm wondering if like maybe they're trying to establish like we're even going back to the roots with zombies, and that's why they portrayed a more serious, I wouldn't say scary, but more intense kind of trailer rather than just like him mowing down zombies, having like a good time and stuff like that, as we've seen in the past.
It could just be incorporated in the Easter egg / story part of the map that they're talking about.
I mean, there is the thing though is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but it just hit me, is that I mean there is people who now just predominantly buy Call of Duty for zombies, no story, no multiplayer.
Yeah, of
so
course,
you're selling to another specific audience there too.
Exactly.
And if you're changing up that formula for them, or what are they thinking? Are they like, all right, I'm down with this? I mean, that's the other. I mean, there's a lot of target audience. There's the people you want to draw in who only buy it for zombies. There's the people you want to draw in who want to give zombies a try, who've kind of played it casually, and then there's just the hardcore zombies community in general. Just a lot of if, ands, or buts tied to the situation.
I think this is just really down to them being a little bit creative with the marketing, and new people that come into the zombies, if they haven't played zombies 1,000 times before, they might get scared a little bit. The story part of the map would be interesting, but people that played it 1,000 times, are just gonna take the. I think, anyways, mostly people will take the marketing for what it is and understand that they will try. Like that's the kind of story that they're trying to tell, but they probably won't mess with the mechanics too much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's possible we could just be looking way too deep into it, but still, I mean, it was just very different from what we've
it was
seen in the past with zombies. I think it's just another example of them going back to their roots.
Which is great.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. So, we were talking about TellTale a little bit earlier. This past weekend, they announced a lot of games. They finally announced Season 2 of, or rather, I think it's just called The Wolf Among Us 2.
It is, yeah.
And then they announced Season 2 of Batman, and then they also announced the final season of The Walking Dead. So those are 3 pretty major announcements. Let's start off with The Wolf Among Us. For me, like I liked the Batman TellTale series. It's just, for me, episodic gaming, I've realized, doesn't hook me. Like, I'll play that first episode and go, I'm totally going to play more of this. And I fucking don't. And so I really liked the first episode of the Batman TellTale series. Stopped right after that, where The Wolf Among Us was the only one I was really invested in, played the shit out of it. Love that one. So hearing that there's finally a sequel, finally, what do you guys think about The Wolf Among Us? We'll start off with that.
Can't wait.
Karak, you can go. Haven't played it.
Yeah, man, that first one is fantastic. So to me, it's different than the it's a different style of game than the others. So and I like, they already were trying the duality of like Batman and Bruce Wayne in Wolf Among Us because of the character that you can turn into, and then the character you are. And well, all the characters in that world technically are sort of a duality because they're fantasy characters living in a real world. So to me, it was the most out there and the least covered fiction of all the stuff that they do. Minecraft, everybody knows what that is. There's all these things everybody knows, but not a lot of people know that comic. And so I can't wait. But I like their game. I mean, I don't love all their games, but I know what I sort of know what they're aiming for. So I'll just sort of sit back and hope that they're generally good. I think that your idea of episodic not capturing is probably a combination of, well, episodic not capturing you like normal, but also their release pattern is fairly long. Yeah. It needs to episodic. See, it's called an episode, and if I say episode to you guys, right? If we were all in a room and I said the term episode, how long? Most people would say weekly. Yep. That's the way it is. We talked
about this armor, and it's so unpredictable that
it's unpredictable. It needs to be. They need to work on this. And my hope is they have or are, but where they've got it sort of plotted out so that they almost know exactly. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do believe this, that if a company ever figures out a way to do every 2 weeks, and really make it worthwhile, it would be. Because that would, for example, think about it this way. Video game, Friday podcast, next week, next video game, next week, Friday podcast. Like, that's the way people work. We do like to engage in discussion. But if you're talking for 3 months, pretty soon somebody's like, what the fuck? I don't even remember. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are like, I don't remember the first episode of this game because the release date's so separated. So
yeah,
they need to be truncated down a great deal.
I mean, really, it's not quite the same, but it's like playing a single-player game and
then just stopping.
And you play for a week and you stop for a month and then you play again. I wouldn't understand what's going on. I mean, I forget shit that happens after a week of playing. Like, if I haven't played a game for a week, I come back into it thinking, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Like, you know what I mean?
Mechanics too, dude.
I mean, that's the entire reason why
every bitch sometimes.
For me, it's the characters, because there's so many stories with so many characters that you got to remember that only the true top tier ones just get retained. And for these episodic games that could have these top tier characters that you really can remember, when it's just spaced out in this, like, okay, we're gonna wait 2 months, then a month, then another 2 months, and it's like so awkwardly spaced out, they don't stick with you as long. Where unlike most games where you sit down and you play at your own pace.
I mean, this is exactly why almost every TV episode is like, and here's what happened last time. Yeah. Dragon Ball Z. And they'll update it for you because they understand people don't remember everything.
Well, yeah, you got a life to fucking live outside of it. So,
well, you got to fucking study. You got to study your TV episodes.
When I did the last review I did for one of these, the joke I made was, they're saying every choice matters. So-and-so will remember. Well, guess what? I don't fucking remember. So you can alert me that Scott Porter's gonna fucking remember as Star-Lord I did something, but I won't even have any clue what decision was made. And that's the honest truth. And I have a pretty good memory for games, but like, and how many times have we jumped into that sequel and they'll say last time on blah blah blah. That's great, but it can't cover everything, and it certainly doesn't cover every choice.
Well, let's say Yakuza. Yakuza does a really good job from what I've seen.
That's not episodic. That's
no, it's not. I'm just saying I thought you were talking generally of covering.
No, I'm talking about the longer period of time trying to cover it in a last week on Supernatural or a special episode of Blossom is far different than last year on a special episode of Blossom. You're like, who the fuck's Blossom?
That's the thing. I was just doing some research on the Wolf Among Us 2, and it's not even the Wolf Among Us 2. It's actually TellTale's calling it Season 2. They're saying this new season will begin a fresh story arc for its returning cast of characters, featuring the return of Adam Harrington as Big B Wolf and Aaron Yvette as Snow White.
Awesome.
Do you know what I say the problem at TellTale is? And this is not necessarily a criticism. Exactly. They're taking on so many different projects. Like, I can't even list them all. Wolf Among Us, Guardians of the Galaxy, Batman, Borderlands.
Here's the thing, though. I agree, Lone. I agree, but you know what? They've also had some pretty good releases lately because Batman is pretty fucking good. And as a game, it's better than Guardians for sure if we're considering the Telltales. So I agree. No, I mean, I totally agree. They are taking on a ton. I don't know who's working on what, like how many teams they have. But I will say this. They need to cash in some of their motherfucking Bitcoin and fix their engine. Because that shit needs to be done ASAP. They need to fix that engine and get it running on consoles at 60 frames per second, or at the very minimum at a locked 30. The last one was, it hit 18. It hit 18. 18. The only thing worth 18 is a chick, and that's it. Like, 18 is unacceptable in a video game, right? Isn't it? 18 frame rate? That's Dragon's Dogma.
I agree.
I love Dragon's Dogma, but seriously.
I know. I forgot about that. I have fond memories of that
It was bad sometimes.
But 18 frames is cinematic in a TellTale.
I forgot about the Ubisoft saying that. Holy fuck. I mean, that's the other thing. It's been since, I think, 2014 that The Wolf Among Us came out. I mean, we got a huge gap to catch up on. Does TellTale expect everyone to be like, yeah, you remember. Let's pick it up now. Or, like, how do they recap that one?
Last time!
Yeah, right? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that, but then they have to account for all your choices, so then that's a bunch of cutscenes before the game even starts. And
you know what I think they'll do? You got a good point. I think you'll replay it, but I think what they'll probably do is have whatever has happened will be not necessarily climatic change, but a big enough change that they'll be able to sort of just start from one again. Sort of like what we hope Kingdom Hearts 3 is, where it's like, okay, let's solidify and let's use this as our floor. Because they're calling it season, you said?
Yeah, they are. I was looking it up.
That's not what I expected, because that could indicate that their idea is, if it does well, we'll put these things together for season 3. I was not expecting it to be called Wolf Among Us season 2.
Was the first one called Season, or is it just called Wolf Among Us?
Just the Wolf Among Us.
Wolf Among Us.
Everyone thought it was going to be a one-off. We won't spoil it for you, just because of like how the game ended. We were all just like, okay, like,
And the comic books.
Was it episode 1, episode 2, 3, 4, 5?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Or I know it was or act. It was chapter, act, or episode. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's such a big gap, and I think TellTale has the tear that out of all companies. I mean, a lot of companies do, but like with any game company, rather, when your IP is popular, your content is popular, there's this demand, and they're trying to constantly supply and take on more and more. But then to remake their engine, they'd have to pretty much stop, or like, it'd be so jarring to go halfway, like, let's say they do 4 seasons of Batman, they go 2 seasons in, they switch endings, so someone who's playing the first 2 seasons like, this is pretty good, yeah, and then like they transfer into this engine, and they're like, holy fuck, this looks good. You know? So it could be a little jarring.
I agree, but you have to. I mean, at some point you do have to. If Unreal can do it, and Unity can do it, and Unity, if those engines can do it, you would assume that they could hire, with their massive amount of money. We've talked about this before. If somebody really wants it done, I think Lone just said this earlier. If they really wanted to do it, it would get done. He was talking about Nintendo and releasing certain games. I think if they really wanted to do it, they would figure out a way to gently move people. For example, 4 years, right? Wolf Among Us. What if they said, okay, Wolf Among Us is the new hotness. It's the new thing. It's the new generation of TellTale, and that's the start of the new engine. Walking Dead 3 will be the old engine, because that's in this group. And then you got Batman 2. Maybe Batman 3 will still be in this old engine, but it's like you do have a sort of a separation. You could interject this update, because, dude, it's terrible.
Yeah, it is just tough, I can see, for smaller developers like that, because TellTale's like not that big. I mean, when you're talking about massive engine changes, EA had a hard enough time changing the engine for FIFA, and they're EA. There are thousands of people in that studio, so I could see why there's something like, for a smaller studio, not just getting the new engine up and running, but having every employee get used to it and actually understand the new engine and make a good game at the same time. It's a big ask, and obviously that's why they're delaying it. But if they need to do it, they need to do it.
They have 600 people, which I think is pretty big.
It's pretty big, but it's not like, in the grand scheme of things, that's probably mid to high tier. It's not that big.
Well, what I'm saying is, I agree with you by terms of people, but then you also look at the game. This isn't FIFA. They don't have animations hooked into sound effects. It's literally a graphic novel. Which so one is up, one is down, sort of. I guess the thing is at some point they have to.
I mean,
that's all.
The other thing I can think of is, because we've seen the data that suggests like graphics really help sell a game more than anything else. So it's like, are they afraid? Okay, we update the engine for this one license. This one license sells like crazy, and does everyone else leave the remainder of the series in the dust? Is that what they're afraid of? I mean,
well, that's why I don't know. They've got it. They've got a good time to do this. You got, I think, but and also graphics. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't think Matty reviews these, but I review most of them if I get a chance. And I'm going to tell you right now, the number one complaint, like the first thing I can guarantee you, won't be first on YouTube. It'll be, runs at 12 frames per second. I mean, it's literally the joke. And it reminds me of Mass Effect 1 on the 360, where everybody's face drew in a good 7 seconds after you entered the game world with Unreal, until they fix that. And I just think there's a lot of things that need to get fixed with that engine. And also, you can't tell me that if the engine is old graphically and all these other things, then it couldn't be also impacting some of the gameplay adds maybe some of their devs want to put in. Because their competition is beating them out. Even Oxenfree, which isn't set up the same way, still beat the shit out of them. And then you have Life is Strange, which I know some people don't love or whatever, but it's considered to be the next level of these kind of games. TellTale can't continue to release paintings in a movie era. Like, at some point, they have to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to jump forward too. I just don't know when they'll do it. I mean, like Lone said, maybe they're too small. Like, I don't know, maybe. Or maybe they need to buy an engine. Unreal. Yeah. And just say...
Yeah, swap to Unreal.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting change. That would definitely be
Can
really
you imagine
swap to Unity.
Guys, how much better would it look, though? I mean, like, or sort of Borderlands. What's Borderlands run on? What's that? What's that engine?
Borderlands engine. Sorry, I don't think it's any.
Is it Destinia or there's a term?
Oh, it is Unreal. Well, there you go.
Okay, so I thought it was Unreal, but I wasn't.
So
sure.
there you go. Right.
I mean, yeah, and that shows you can make good cell shaded.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to them. I guess.
That's another one, guys. Who played Borderlands? The Borderlands one was there were some okay episodes in that too. The TellTale Borderlands. Did you either one of you guys?
I played. What did I play? I think I think that was another one. I played the first episode. I've reviewed it. I was like, yeah, I'm on board. I love Borderlands, and I was like, okay.
And then 6 months later, they released episode 2.
That was the one game I do. Now that you say that, that was like outside of Batman. That was the one that was. I remember playing. I was so ready for the next episode, and I waited and waited and waited. I think it was like 2 or 3 months. I want to say. I'm not exaggerating because I remember
each episode is a season.
I remember waiting. I remember waiting the first time a full month, just hoping they'd announce it. And I don't know when they actually did, but yeah, that was one that fucking shocked the life out of me.
Well, I mean, this is why Netflix, and this is why I love Netflix. When they release a new season, they just drop all the fucking episodes, or at the very least, they drop like 4 episodes, and then you'll get a bunch more really quickly. As much as it's fun with Game of Thrones. They release 1 episode a week, and everyone gets excited for the next one. They talk about it over the space of however many weeks. But I kind of like Netflix when they're like, "Here's just everything. Binge watch it, enjoy." That's so much better for me because I prefer being able to watch an episode straight away as opposed to waiting for a week. It builds up suspense and excitement and all that. I get that, but if we're talking about the enjoyment of the series, I'd prefer to watch it straight away.
And also, I mean, wouldn't you agree that just timing-wise, it's probably sometimes a little easier to set aside 4 or 5 hours to watch a couple episodes versus 1 hour every week? And I like both. I'm a big fan of both kind of deliveries. Like, I love both, and we could argue for hours about which one's better because I like both equally. Okay. But I would agree that it would be nice if they were just like here.
Matty's got a smile on his face.
Yep. I'm assuming this is how many months between releases.
I was not exaggerating. Let's just say that.
I know you were. I know you were.
Because I thought insane. Like, okay, maybe I was just like, some type of fucking memory faux pas. No. All right, so this game came out, and by this game I mean Tales of the Borderlands. Episode 1 released November 25th, 2014. Now we scroll down. Episode 2 was not out until March 17th of 2015.
Yeah.
And then after that, they got on a steady schedule. After that, it was steady. It was June, August, October.
But and Life is Strange was more steady, which might have been why they succeeded too. I think you have to be steady. Even if it's monthly, weekly, whatever, it has to be steady or all at once, like Lone said. It would be weird to see a game because I think, unfortunately, gamers are dead set against episodic released all at one time. They feel that there's something.
Well, then it's just like a normal game, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. But then what is Game of Thrones? Just a 10-hour fucking movie? Like. I mean, at some point,
pretty much is.
Well, no, but I'm saying, but I don't hate it more. I don't dislike it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You know what I mean?
It's just,
but I think the difference is I pay Netflix one payment. I think that's the big difference, and you'll never be able to explain to a gamer that Netflix for $10 a month gives me all of these things in all these different ways, or each game episode from each different company I have to pay separate. And then people start hedging, and they're like, okay, wait. And I think that's just games. Like, it's just the way they're.
I mean, the closest thing to Netflix to gaming is the Xbox Game Pass. They recently added a bunch of new games to that, so I'm glad that that's doing well. All right.
Good news, regardless. I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, before we move on, I realized I got a little off track. Was there anything you guys want to say about Batman or final season of The Walking Dead?
No, I'm good.
No, you good?
I'm excited.
You good, Lone? You good?
There you go.
Does Lone doesn't play TellTale games, right? I'm assuming.
No.
So Batman, I can't wait for. I really thought that that the last Batman game was actually very fun. very enjoyable to just sit back and play.
Cool.
So I'm stoked for that. When it comes to Walking Dead, I'm sorry. Season 1 was amazing. I really enjoyed Season 1, and then after that, I haven't really liked them ever as much. I think Season 1's main protagonist, I'm not a big fan of Clementine, and I know a lot of people right now are sending mail my way, but I was much more of a fan of Lee, right? Was it Lee?
Yeah.
Maddie? Yeah, Lee. And so, to me, that's a little less important. The Batman's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm happy about is that, they're finally wrapping it up, right? Like,
yeah.
Is this like the first TellTale series that they're like, this is the last one?
Yeah. Yes.
So that's going to be interesting to see how they plan on wrapping up a story of theirs.
Oh, no, wait, sorry. Borderlands. They did wrap up Borderlands at the end.
Oh, it was just one. That was just a one-time thing?
For the way it came, the way it all came, it would be a one-time thing, yeah.
Okay.
If you just look at the way the story is, I would be really surprised if they ever use those same characters as another season. I could be wrong, but...
They're just setting up for Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I'm hoping we get more news soon on that. Next, we'll talk about the Destiny beta. Did anyone have the pleasure of playing that one?
Nope. I did.
You did, Karak. I'd love to get your thoughts on this one.
Did you, Maddie?
I did.
Yeah, Maddie's a bit cold on it.
Oh, well, I can't tell if you're joking, but I am. I did post yesterday that it didn't really grab me. I liked some elements of it, like the weather particles and stuff, the rain and some scenes were fucking it definitely was a step above some of the environmental. I guess that sort of solidifies you in the spot and you're like, okay, I'm here. That was cool. Some of the enemy designs were really cool, but it's not really Destiny right now because what they showed was the same. It was linear for everybody. There wasn't a lot of like this flexibility yet. And so what I saw for the beta was like, okay, that's a level of Destiny 1 or 2. It's 2, obviously. That's what they're calling it. So I'm okay with that. But I didn't really get a feel of Destiny as a game because of that beta. It's one of the first betas where I felt that, where I'm like, okay, it didn't show me what actually is occurring.
Like the looting all too much. It was very... That's the thing, is I agree completely. The first thing that caught my attention, even with the first Destiny, was the environments. I always said with Destiny 1, if there's anything that you want to say about Destiny, it's that they made a world that made you want to explore it. But I found myself with that same issue, and I'm not expecting a beta to fucking flesh out all the lore and stuff. But, especially because it's kind of good timing because I'm playing Borderlands, and now, oddly, Borderlands is being constantly compared to Destiny, and I'm like, look, yeah, I get the shooting, looting kind of aspect, but... Borderlands at least has purpose to their characters, and because of that, I was more apt to
Borderlands
notice.
Is better too.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid saying that, but
Borderlands is fucking better.
All bias aside, what I'm saying though is that, for example, you run into a named enemy in Borderlands. He has some type of quest purpose. He's there for a reason. We were talking about this earlier, where we have this house built on top of a cemetery. That's why arms are coming up and grabbing you. So,
yeah, right.
You look at Destiny 2, and I'm fighting this guy who was named whatever, and I don't really know his purpose at all. And I'm not just talking, ladies and gentlemen, about like the boss at the end of the strike. I'm sure he has some type of purpose that I'm unaware of as a very casual, really not interested in Destiny at all type of player. But like when I bump into these mini bosses, they're just kind of there. So what they essentially end up being is a name with a ton of health, and that justifies their extra health. So they're just a bullet sponge. And that eventually shows that it's just lacking mechanics, too, because they serve no narrative purpose, and then they're just kind of there to pad along the process, keep it going a little bit longer. Like, oh, boy, guys, here we go, because, it's a co-op game. Here we go, here's a little boss. And it's like he's just there for the sake of being a boss. He's not serving any purpose. And it's not that like every character has to have this major narrative reason for being there, but at least make some sense as to why this guy is important in why he's so tough to kill on top of everything else. Is he just a higher ranking commander? Like, those names didn't really suggest that, because they had those mystical, like, Jarl, the Ballcraft King, I don't fucking know, some shit like that. So that was the first thing that kind of threw me off. I like the PvP, I'll say that much. I like the PvP. I liked it in the first one, because Bungie, Halo, I'd be shocked if the PvP wasn't fun. One thing I did notice from what I've seen online, what I've talked to with a couple of friends who play Destiny a lot, is that they did reuse a lot of mechanics. They did reuse a lot of assets in certain enemy designs. They looked cool, but like a mask, for example, instead of it being made out of like bone, it was kind of metallic, but it was the same model from the previous game, but it was put onto a different enemy with a different name. So it's little things like that where I was like, okay, like that's where you actually start establishing a Destiny 1.5 complaint. And I'm not trying to justify it. I want to give the game a fair chance, but yeah, overall, I wasn't really. I've just kind of established, you know, the game's not for me. You know, I don't think I'm gonna like it, even if I want to, which I try to with all these games. I try to approach it fair, open-minded, clean slate. Let's see, you know, because like you don't want to hate the popular thing, right? You don't want to be that guy. It's like, you know, because it just looks like you're just like mongering for fucking attention. It's like, guys, look, I don't like what you like, you know, but it's just, it feels so samey. You know, I was instantly, after the first half hour, very disengaged, especially because what I was playing was stuff I had already seen. It seems like they're trying to hide a lot of this game. A lot of the core, like you said, you weren't getting a feel for Destiny and Destiny 2. Some main things that we expect in a Destiny game, especially the social hub, they're only having that out for an hour. Just like 1 hour. And it's like, why are you hiding these things? We want Destiny to grow. Obviously, it's very popular, but we want new players to come in to give it a chance. And, you know, it's like just a lot of things feel hidden, unexplained, shoved to the side. That's just the feeling I'm getting with it so far. I wasn't too sold on the beta, and it's a shame. You know, it looks like a game that is going to be kind of serving the same purpose the first one did, which, Karak, you said this, it doesn't really surprise me because, you know, it's such a fucking well-selling franchise.
Right.
It's just I want to get in on the fun, and it wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah, I mean, it'll also be interesting if they if that's just a bad beta, which has happened before. A lot of the FPSs that I've played have had betas where I'm like, oh, this isn't working, or betas that are great, and then you go into the main game and you're like, yeah, this is not. So that could happen too. I will say one thing. I just, and I'll call it out if it occurs, but there has to be, and this is not against Matty, but he brought it up, so I do want to talk about asset reuse for 1 second.
Go for it.
Yeah. People's fucking heads don't suddenly change shape. So a helmet may be somewhat the same shape between two characters. Here is the problem for me about like the helmet comment and why I agree with Matty. It's because they didn't show differences enough in the beta to make it feel like two. Not necessarily the asset reuse or the changing of a texture on a model. That's okay if those other things loft it up. That's the way. That's how creation is done.
Reusage in a lot of games.
Exactly, and that's the way it should happen, because you want devs to not go out and re-record an M16 because M16 fucking bullets suddenly sound different. You're an idiot. They don't sound different. Oh, they only sound different if you got a bad sample. So some of those things need to be shared. A lot of people say DICE is amazing for their audio. Well, guess what? Guess who reuses their audio? They don't go and re-record a new fucking Star Wars laser shot. Like, how stupid are you?
They take the sounds from the movies. That's what they did.
But at the same time, what Matty hit on that makes perfect sense is that some are focusing on that because the beta didn't mystically move things forward the way we expected. I'm going to be honest, something I miss in games, it happened a little bit in Halo, it's happened in Gears for sure, but one thing I love in my first-person shooter isn't a fucking title on a character. It is where you see that character, that new bad guy being made, like, or you hear about it, where the NPCs are like, there's this bunker and something crazy is going, and you go down and that new bad guy is introduced from that point on, and you get a feeling of fiction where he's being built up, not just popping into your game world as I'm a gold dude, with a special name. Yeah. And that's the thing. They had such a chance for some of those characters to have you go into a location where they were being built or put together, where weird things were going on, to where these bad guys were being created to be badasses. That's the thing. You can't be a badass if nobody knows your fucking history. You're just a dude. Exactly. Right? I mean, that makes no sense. So we fought a bunch of dudes who looked cool. Well, that doesn't really mean shit. Mm-hmm. And so gamers pick up on other stuff, asset reuse, and those which are viable for sure at that point. That's because you start wondering where the resources
people view those types of complaints as nitpicky, but it's I got to use it as an example just because I've been recently playing at Borderlands. I mean, really, in the scheme of things, your mission structure in Borderlands is go here, kill that, or go here, collect that. but how key the writing is, the context of what you're doing, like
New Vegas.
New
Vegas.
The Bullymong mission where you're going around for Sir Hammerlock, you're killing a bunch of Bullymongs for him for his almanac. He's like, we're gonna call him boner farts now, and it's like, hey, I'm just killing these things. Really, in the scheme of things, it's like kill 15 of them, now kill 10 of them. It's really just a simplistic gameplay mechanic, but because of what's happening, because of what Sir Hammerlock's saying, how funny it is, you know, it's
Witcher 3.
It's totally different. You know, I say that all the time. For example, we see this Predator vision, or as you call it, the Vietnam vision.
Yeah, Nom-vision in Mafia.
So many games, but when it makes sense, like Horizon Zero Dawn, you know, you have this little thing on the side of your head. It makes sense why you can see all this shit. It makes sense. So it's not ridiculous. Batman, you know, you got the I forgot what it was called.
Sonar.
Investigation mode.
It's got like investigation.
It kind of
mode,
makes sense. Batman is a detective. You know, he's good at investigating, so it makes sense he's got that. That's the thing. Is what I'm getting at. Is like, if we're shooting, like, I just be repeating what you said. Yeah, you know, he's not badass just because he's got a cool name and he glows gold. I want to know what made him such a special character. And we don't need this whole in-depth thing. Like you said, it could just be a little audio cue as you're turning the corner. A couple of guards are standing outside talking about it, you know, because it's during an invasion, so they're establishing waypoints. It's like, oh, hey, this guy's going to be here in a second. Yeah, remember what he did last time we did something like this? You know.
Look at Halo, where with Guilty Spark continually traveling with you and saying little one-liners about what was going on. And the entire time you're just like, holy shit, what's happening? And then the flood shows up and you start seeing, and you're like, what is going on? I mean, the thing totally changes. And it changes not because you encounter the flood first. You don't. Other people do. And you see it happen. And they kill everybody in seconds. And you're like, what? Just, holy shit, they're badass. They're scary as fuck. And so from that point on, when you encounter them, you already have a predetermined response that you're going to have. And it just, in this beta, the predetermined response was unfortunately the same response anybody already had from 1. So if they were going into it negative, they were most likely not seeing much. And if they went into it and they were like, I want more, they were seeing that. And I just hope it's a bad beta, because if it's not, I mean, this is another big series that had a lot of chance. And I really would like to see those kind of games succeed, because I like those kind of games.
Well, that's the thing, is like a good example of because it gave us what I assume is the first mission of the story, and I'm glad they didn't give too much away. I would have liked to see more, but you know, I look at like a demo like Nier Automata, like that. The reason I was hearing how good the game was from reviewers, but I wasn't like rushing to get it. Then I heard about the demo. I tried the demo. I was like, this is really good. And that was the first mission of the game, and it left me at a point where I was like, I want to know what the fuck happens after they use the black box. It's like, I need to get in on that. With Destiny 2, it did one thing that, I'm not going to critique Destiny 2 for this specifically, but it did one thing that a lot of narratives do that I never understand, which is, you know, this badass bad guy is coming around, he's killing everything in sight, then he gets to you and he's like, I'm gonna play with this guy, and he's gonna do the one thing that definitely won't finish you off and like kick you off a ledge, and you're gonna live undoubtedly and come back and make him rue the day. And those types of things just always, I'm like, why did he decide? In fiction,
there's a name for that, Matty. It's called obscure death. There's a name in fiction for what you just described, and you're absolutely right. That obscure death pisses most people off, whether it be an enemy, villain getting kicked off a ledge and coming back for revenge, or the main player. That shit's ancient. That shit's like, it's on papyrus. It doesn't need to be written again.
Kneels, he looks down up at like this huge hulking figure, intimidating guy. I'm like, oh, he's gonna pick me up and break my neck or something like that. Nope, motherfucker just kicks me off. I'm like, I'm alive. All good.
He tows you off a cliff, basically. He's like, nah.
I mean, that's why I like Mass Effect. You know, it makes sense in the beginning of Mass Effect 2, you completely die. You're done. But Cerberus finds you, and it's a whole different thing. They bring you back to life. They force you into life, and you're almost like put into service for them. So it sets up all the narrative there. So that's just one thing. It's really not Destiny 2 in particular, but when I see that in games, I'm instantly disconnected, because I'm like, this guy didn't really do anything to me. He could have killed me. He chose not to, and so it just makes him an idiot. I just think lower of him.
Yeah, right.
Lone, you're a big Destiny fan. Anything you want to throw in?
I didn't have time to play the beta. I know it's open beta this weekend, isn't it? But it's not on PC.
Correct. PC is later.
That's another thing. That'll be interesting to see how that See, that's one thing they should beta test to see, how the port's working.
Well, the main thing for PC for me is, the force feedback that they've already said recoil is going to be almost removed completely because a mouse and recoil doesn't work very well. That's going to be really weird because I was just experimenting with those mouse to keyboard adapters, and we were playing Destiny with the PS4 one, and one of my friends he loves it, and I'm like, I hate this because when I fire, the fucking barrel's doing this, and you're like scrolling down with it's just terrible. You can't hold it. You can't hold it, right? Mm. And I don't know. I want to see it because I think PC is where it's going to be at for its look and what it can do. But it's going to be interesting to see like how they adjust things and how it feels, like how much different it'll feel or not feel.
Yeah, like I said, I hope it's a bad beta because I want to.
Me too.
I want to get into it. I want to try it. So we'll see how it goes. Last bit of news, Lone, you're going to go ahead and lead us into this one because we're talking about BioShock 3 and what could presumably be the developers for this beloved franchise. So let's hear it. You made a video about this, but we definitely want to talk about it some more.
Yeah, so made a video about this today. It kind of follows up. Last month I did an Everything We Know video about BioShock where I pretty much tracked the, if you will, downfall of BioShock ever since Ken Levine wound down Irrational Games, because essentially, and a lot of this is coming from Strauss Zelnick of Take-Two, but you had Irrational Games wind down. You had Strauss Zelnick say that 2K Marin is going to be the studio that develops BioShock, but they had experienced serious staff reductions at that stage and had pretty much closed down. So then every moment from then on, when Strauss was talking about BioShock and how it's a permanent franchise, it's really important, it's etc., they were never confirming, they were never even mentioning 2K Marin. So it seems like that studio doesn't even exist anymore, right? But then you have this studio called Hangar 13 that props up, that created the latest Mafia game. That studio was initially created by a bunch of people from 2K Marin, but also as well, a lot of the people some of the people anyways that were let go from Irrational Games moved across to Hangar 13. So I'm like, okay, you've got people there that have worked on BioShock Infinite and BioShock 2 and BioShock 2 DLC. I maybe some people that worked on the original BioShock, I don't know, but at least you've got that experience there. Then after that, you have so Mafia 3 is pretty much done. The DLC, I think the DLC is pretty much finished as well. I don't know. Maybe there's a few more coming.
One last one.
So one last, right? And they have to move on to something else. Yeah.
Right.
And then Hangar 13, they're starting to hire aggressively for something, because you don't have, like, usually when a game is finished, a developer will let employees go because they don't need that many people on board. But it seems like they're actually developing something big, because not only are they hiring about 17 positions, like just as we know of, but they also merged with 2K Czech, which developed Mafia 2, and they have about at least over 50 staff. So it's a lot of anecdotal evidence, I know, that I'm putting together with this, but
yeah,
a studio that has BioShock experience, that's still hiring. What other 2K game can you think of that Strauss Zelnick has consistently said, we're going to get another one of these games? What other game can you think of that this studio is working on? It could be anything.
It's Mafia 4.
No, not
Mafia
straight away.
Mafia 3 sold incredibly well.
But
I hate the fact that it did, but it sold incredibly well.
Honestly, I don't think that they're going to be moving on from Mafia 3 to Mafia 4 straight away.
That's what I thought as well. But Go Burns, the guy who's on my channel, his entire channel is Mafia and GTA. And just looking at some of those hiring positions and some of the different people who haven't left versus people who have and stuff like that, I would love to see. I mean, like, I would rather see, for example, I'd rather see a BioShock. But Mafia 3 sold freakishly well for such a terrible game.
Fastest selling game ever, November 2nd, 2016.
Yeah, and the rumor is
units in the first week.
In the first week. And the rumor is internally.
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead. I was just going to say the rumor was internally that when that happened, it was instantly greenlit to 2, and that was what everybody has switched to. In fact, Go has some info about the delay in some of the DLC that was supposed to come out, and why that delay might have been attributed to some of those people being shifted, new people being trained to do the DLC, but the other people were doing Mafia 4. So
I don't know. I don't know. Like, and here's the thing, right? I don't know whether it's going to be Mafia 4 or whether it's going to be the next BioShock, right? All I do know is that 2K Marin was designated as a studio that was going to work on the next BioShock game, and a lot of those staff, a lot of the veteran staff there, moved across to Hangar 13, right? And I don't know whether they would jump straight on to doing the next Mafia game. It just doesn't make sense to me. And when Take-Two is saying, Strauss-Zelnick is saying, we're getting another BioShock game, which other developer could possibly work on that game within Take-Two? So while I know that, Mafia... Studio. But what studio?
That's just my guess, I'm saying. I mean, it could be like one of those things where, they haven't even announced the studio is working on it. They've created this brand new studio to work on BioShock. They're like, all right, you guys got this. There's no pressure. No one's talking about you guys. No one knows about you guys. Just focus on making the game. And when it's ready, reveal it, and they'll reveal the studio and everything with it. I don't know. I don't even know if that's possible.
Look at Anthem. Casey Hudson basically let slip that prior to leaving BioWare, he was already working on Anthem. And so he's happy to be returning to Anthem. And I'm like, holy shit, what? Yeah. I knew it had been in development for a while, but even talks, that's surprising for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So they can do that where they're, in their preliminary. And I'm going to be honest, I would rather have a BioShock, but at the same time, I would rather not have a BioShock. And the reason why is because I want them to take their time and and do a good job. And I don't know if I trust anybody to make BioShock right now, too. Well, I mean, I don't know why. This is the
exact reason why I'm mentioning it, right? I mean, you're saying that you want them to take their time with BioShock and make a good game. Would you really trust giving BioShock to a brand new studio? I mean, look at Hangar 13 and Mafia 3. I mean, it sold well, blah, 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 blah. But they were a brand new studio that I think 2K checked that developed Mafia 2 helped them with that game. But they were a brand new studio, and the game was pretty average from what I could see with all the reviews, right? Now, imagine if you had a brand new... It doesn't matter. Like, usually when a brand new studio comes together, they haven't worked with each other. They're still getting their bearings together. The first game that studio develops is probably not going to be the greatest game in the world, right? There probably are exceptions to that. But you had Mafia 3 as one example of a new studio come together, and they developed an average game. I reckon their next game, Hangar 13's game, would be much improved. But you're saying that if there's going to be a new studio that works on BioShock, that's going to be an average game, very likely anyways.
I agree. I mean, it makes that's why it makes more sense to be Mafia 4. I actually agree with you. It's just our conclusion is different. It is going to be a better game, let's hope. And Mafia 3 sold incredibly well and was considered by some, including myself, to be average. But it sold incredibly well and has a huge fan base and is now, like right now. So if Mafia 4 comes along and we ascribe all the same things you just said about BioShock, you have to do the same thing with Mafia, that would be better. And they're looking at the numbers going, well, damn, if Mafia 3 average did this, if we really nail this, look at what we could do. I think what we're doing is we're starting to say, if it's not these guys, who else? That's when we all lose because, like, we have no clue. I would rather it be BioShock, personally. This is not a mutually exclusive thing. They could be hiring that heavily because they're doing both.
They could do both, we don't know that, right? But I can't see them as a studio to move straight onto the next Mafia game. That doesn't really make sense to me.
How many did Infinity sell?
I think.
Does anybody know?
It was 9 million. Let me check.
No, I think it was like 11 million. I know overall BioShock has sold about 25 million copies as a franchise.
But without Levine, he won't be involved in this one at all, right?
At all. Yeah. BioShock Infinite, 11 million sales.
11 million sales. So personally, see, what's weird is, and Go is a better person than myself to talk about this, but he knows people at the companies, like actually legitimately has met them. And so he had some information about Czech, the other group that worked on it and helped. And, just looking at everything, it was the opinion that this was the plan, but it could be too. It just also depends on like how they do their stuff, because remember, Infinity's team at one time wasn't very big either. So it's like it was and then it wasn't and there was, So it could be one of those things where they understand that you don't necessarily have to blow things out of the water if you're just putting things together preliminarily. So maybe they do both, and then they ramp up when they're closer for either one.
Well, that's the thing. And my estimation is that at the very least, this is about a 200-strong studio, right? You have about 50 people from 2K Czech. You had, I think, 150 people last count at Hangar 13. And then they're hiring more. I mean, this could be a studio. Maybe, but I think that this could be a studio that maybe could work on 2 games and has the capacity to. But what I just don't know is who else could possibly work with it, work on BioShock. And I don't think they're going to pawn it off to a third party. I really don't. The only other guess that I have is the studio that did the remaster, BioShock the Collection. Blind Squirrel Games, but even that they did a remaster.
Well, here's the thing:
would you trust them doing a new game?
That's not entirely improbable. Look at Sly Cooper. You had Sucker Punch Games do the first 3, then Sanzaro Games comes in, they remaster all 3 of them. They said they used it as a case study on what made a Sly Cooper game good, and in my opinion, they made a really good Sly Cooper game for the 4th entry in the series, Thieves in Time. I know that game gets some shit, but I think it's better in Sly 3. Personally.
You know what worries me, guys? I'm not as big of a fan as of the BioShock stuff, nearly as both you guys. I think some of them are okay, and I'm not a fan of a couple others. But Ken Levine is just BioShock to me. So it's so like the idea of him not working on it kills my soul. Not because I think it can't be done. It can be done. It's just that I know a lot of people hated Infinity, but I liked I liked his idea of Infinity, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I loved his idea.
That was
I don't know of anybody else who has that thing.
Yeah. That was the thing I was going to get around to. I was like, maybe it's just on ice, and they're not making it right now.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, is it on ice until they find somebody?
Do they look at the whole story and go, what do we do that's better than this? Or,
And what do they do? What world do they go to? They've gone subterranean. They've gone underwater. What do they do? Space.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? I mean, here's the thing. Before Red Dead was actually announced, we didn't know we were going to get another Red Dead, right? Red Dead 2. And before that, you had Strauss Zelnick say the exact same things about Red Dead as he's saying about BioShock. He said, word for word, that it's a permanent franchise and that it's important to us. And what do we get? We get another Red Dead. Now, it's slightly different because it's Rockstar. But, he's saying those exact same things with BioShock. Of course, the possibility is there, and they don't make BioShock the Collection for no reason unless they're trying to prep us.
That's what I said. They literally made a Twitter and a remastered collection just last year over
exactly.
What? They're gonna do something with it. I mean, here's the thing: is I hope it's not the Hangar 13 games. I'm gonna be honest. I like the story Mafia 3.
Yeah, me neither.
It showed that they can tell a good story. But their gameplay structure needs work.
It's you and I talk about this because it reminds us of BioWare. Like if BioWare said they were making a Jade Empire, I'm not 100% sure you and I would both be like, "That's awesome." We would probably be like, "Can we find somebody
this
else?"
Sounds good, but hold on,
But this goes back to them being a new studio. That's the first game that they worked on. It probably is going to take them many years to start to truly sink. And also as well, Mafia is a completely different game to BioShock. I mean, maybe the reason why they didn't make a good Mafia game is because they didn't really have experience making Mafia. Because previously, it was 2K Czech making Mafia, and they just assisted with Mafia 3 after they were a lot of the stuff made redundant.
I will say this. I think I agree, but I'm going to be rude here and say I think you are attributing intelligence and common sense and an attention to detail to people that might be looking more at a dollar sign, and they both had big dollar signs for sure. But what I'm saying is, like, we say it's average, and I swear to shit, if you locked one of them in a room and said, "Is Mafia 3 average?" I think that the first thing out of their mouth as they died would be, "Well, look how it sold, and that was our first game." Like, so you and I think one thing, but the way some of these people think, they can't see because they don't know game development too. Some of the people who make these decisions, and I've talked to them, and they will admit this. Matrick, who ran Microsoft, was a big game developer for a while, but he lost sync, and he was hugely popular prior to taking over for Microsoft. But if you talk to them, they will tell you straight up. They'll be like, "Well, sometimes we're too high. We're way beyond the discussion of the actual game creation. We just put the team together. And sometimes the team only gets put together because two people get in a room and go, how much can we make? And I think we hope for far more intelligence. I don't mean to sound jaded, but like,
well, my fear is that the way it's funny. I literally just last night started a playthrough of BioShock 1 for like the 5th time. So it's really coincidental that this episode we're hitting on all the games I've been playing. And there's one thing I noticed about BioShock 1 compared to, we'll have to use Mafia 3 because it's their only work, is that BioShock 1 and Mafia 3... yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was good. Is that BioShock 1 really relies on the environment and the player to discover the story, where... especially in Mafia 3, it was a documentary. It was telling you the story. And that was like two different styles of storytelling that I don't know if Hangar 13 is capable of doing. There was a very special DNA within Irrational Games to let the player discover the story for themselves, where, nowadays we see a lot of the audio logs, and we talked about the dying audio, like, I'm fucking going down, but I gotta let you know what's going on.
Thank God this Zune ran out of power right now.
What's that? An explosion plays in the background. I'm gonna hit end record now. We've talked about
Makes
this
me want to
before.
kill somebody, man.
But it allowed a new type of storytelling where the player uncovered it for themselves and filled in the gaps, and it was innovative for its time, and I think BioShock stopped at just the right time where it started to become redundant with those audio logs, and it started to become ridiculous, where now not only would Hangar Games have to come in and really replicate that same DNA of the environmental storytelling that's powerful and that translates an image of what is going on to the player, how this utopia became a dystopia, but also reinventing the narrative wheel in a way, because now you're in a place where there's so many first-person games. There's so many first-person shooters, and that's why BioShock really caught on, is because it gave the player this different type of gameplay choice from other titles, but, kind of gave you the idea that you're playing around the narrative, like the Little Sisters in BioShock 1. So it's just, they have to reinvent the wheel in a lot of ways and really fucking come up with something different. And I don't know if any, like we said earlier, I don't know if any company would be really able to do something along those lines. It's tough to think of one.
I agree. It's going to be hard to kind of... It's really tough to catch lightning in a bottle. I think that's the phrase, right? Mm-hmm. But that being said, which studio would you trust? The one that actually does have people that worked on multiple BioShock games, or someone else? And that's the key. I know that maybe Mafia 3 wasn't the best game.
Worked on the pre-sequel, didn't they have people who worked on the original Borderlands helping out on that? Well, I'm in the ballpark that I didn't really like pre-sequel that much.
Neither did I.
Pre-sequel was slightly different, though. No. Okay.
Very different DNA.
No. Pre-sequel was different because the people that created that game were 2K Australia, right? And initially, up until that point, they did a lot of supporting stuff. All right, they helped with BioShock, they helped with Borderlands, and then this was kind of, I don't know if it was their first game, but it was one of their big, new games that they ever did on their own. But you're talking about Irrational Game staff now working on this new BioShock game, not people that used to provide a supporting role. Example.
A lot of New Vegas' staff moved on to Fallout 4.
That's different, though, man.
And a lot of people would be shocked to find that one out, but a lot of people whose portfolios are out there who worked on Fallout 4, you'll see it, 2010, Fallout New Vegas, and people are like, hold the fuck up, like it's just, I'm not bringing down your point or trying to upset you, Lone. I love when you're a happy little guy. I'm just saying, it's like you said, it's a lightning in the bottle kind of thing. You're like, like a New Vegas, lightning in the bottle. BioShock, lightning in the bottle. It's like, it's hard to recapture, especially in a new studio, that energy, even if you got the same people there.
I have a question for both of you. If we all three lived anywhere near each other, if he didn't live in the penal colony and we lived in the West Coast, so everybody was living with me. I'm just joking. Could we, and I think we're fairly intelligent. We're probably mediocre people. Could we come up with an idea for BioShock, whatever we want to call it, Space Dome? Could we come up with one that would be different enough that it didn't feel like Endor compared to fucking Hoth compared to the original fucking Star Wars, where it's just different planet. And that's the way BioShock to me feels a little bit sometimes, is like we're going to go to these different environs each, and could we? I mean, do we have an idea? Space, right? Like, because otherwise, that's half of it to me, is the environment. That's why, to me, Infinite was so interesting. And because it was so different.
It's literally...
It's space.
The setting and environment is
crucial.
The story.
It is the story.
Absolutely agree.
It really is.
Absolutely
So it's like you can
So-
only go a number of places.
What do we do? Like, what would we
okay.
do? What would we come up with? Would it be...
My idea has been, we've had Prey. We're about to have more System Shock games that's dealing with space. Let them deal with space. My idea and this has been a lot of people's ideas. I'm not like, oh, I'm so fucking smart, but just having an underground themed BioShock.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is you could have like underground caverns with stalagmites and stalactites. You could have underground volcanoes, like fucking mine people, something with an underground setting. I'm not a fucking games developer, right? But that would be much different to what we've had with Infinite, which was in the sky, and BioShock, the original BioShock, which was under the sea, right?
I think
that's
the difference is that both those games, I think, because of the environments, had such a fucking beautiful color palette. Even now,
you could have a beautiful color palette.
I mean, if you have like the shiny stones, I don't know.
You could have like
a
diamond mine, for instance.
No, there's a very good example of this. Menzo Baranzan, which is Forgotten Realms, the Drizzt or Drit series, whatever you want to call, however you want to pronounce them. It's a Dark Elf series. It's #1 Forgotten Realms Dungeon and Dragons novel and world, and it had multiple ones, super popular enough that Steven Spielberg was going to make a movie out of it for a while. That showed the beauty. There were artists who were working on the covers, and they showed that you could certainly do a colorful underground. I think Gears, this is going to sound really weird, but just stick with me for a second. I think Gears of War has at times shown that if you understand how to do color bounce and you understand how to draw a person's eye, you can do some pretty crazy stuff with color underground. But the thing with underground, and I like the idea, is even the methodology for BioShock has a particular Atlas Shrugged kind of thing, right? Like each one has this. So the only thing that underground to me speaks of, and you guys are going to get mad, but well, you guys won't, is Fallout. Because like, why would it be underground? I start thinking all of a sudden, like, what if it's a civilization that all escaped because they thought nuclear war was happening, the Cold War? That would be interesting.
That would be.
So you could do that. That could be pretty cool.
That's actually that'd be a fucking good idea.
Yeah,
that's
that would. Where maybe they still think
they
still think something's happened. Above ground, or maybe you're a character who is there and you're the first one, to meet him who's from the outside world.
And also as well, it could just be on a different planet. I mean,
that's the thing, but then it's just an imagination thing, because at least in my opinion, you could say this is a different planet and put it in some place, but in the scheme of things, what's different about BioShock 1 and 2 is that it's about like people essentially seceding from America and creating their own civilization.
Well, kind of the same with Infinite too, right?
Yeah.
With
pretty much. I mean,
with BioShock Infinite? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
They were based on, fuck this, let's go to a new planet. Like,
and they were based on English narrative, by the way. So like they all had English. So a space one would be hard for me because I would try to figure out a different planet would be even harder, because some of it is about the narrative that a person, for example, who wants to read Atlas Shrugged can go do so right now outside of the game. A person who wants to read some of these books that sort of created BioShock 1, 2, and Infinite can go get those. I don't know about a space. I don't know about an alien one, because it would be like, what would you go?
But no, just because it's another planet doesn't mean it's alien. I mean, you could have a story, for instance, where,
I see what you're saying.
Look at how many years that we've been trying to set up settlements on Mars, and you could have this really rich, this rich entrepreneur that's just like, you know what, I have a bunch of money, I'm gonna go do it on my own and set up a society on Mars. There you go,
Elon Musk. That would be awesome.
And you've got this awesome, cool red setting. Like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, if that were the case, where it would have to be a situation where they're like, we're sick of what's going on here, set up an interesting scenario on what's happening on Earth, and saying we're either moving to another planet. I really like, it is a lot like Fallout. That's probably why I was like, oh fuck, that's a great idea. Is, let's go underground and hide from what could potentially be a war. Because eventually, then I imagine the end goal of that entire game would be what's happening above ground.
Right.
But no, you know what? It doesn't have to be we're going to go underground because we're trying to hide from something. It can be we're going to go underground.
We were just saying it could.
No, I agree. But like it could be we are going to go underground, create the society to create an uprising against people above ground. That was I guess the ending of BioShock 1 kind of touched on that if you're talking about the evil ending. But we've never had a BioShock really where we've had one of these dystopian worlds actually attack the real world. Usually they try to stay pretty separate. I
thought they were going to do a Battle in New York DLC for Infinite.
What about this? So he's right. What about this? What if your character is from the other, from above, and you're doing all the shit, and then it ends, and the ending is basically that you're lying, and that everybody above is as bad as everybody says. So you're like, you're like, I'm fighting for freedom. This place down here sucks. You need to go up, and everybody goes up, and you lead them up into a fucking human mulcher because everybody above is out of food. And Soylent Green is humans. That would be so crazy to be like, you're the bad guy. You're like, and you're all, come on, everybody.
Right? That or touching off Lone's idea of a society that, they go underground because they want to create an uprising, and perhaps you're born into this and you're catered to think this way and stuff. And the whole game, like, they do a good job of getting you to believe this and stuff. And then, like, you go above ground. And you find out like that really wasn't the case or something. I don't know, something along those lines. That's the thing is like it feels like we're stretching a little bit.
It does.
But we're not. Yeah. I mean, we are just literally three people that aren't really writers. We're not really narrative designers.
Nor intelligent.
On a podcast that we're talking about random ideas that sound fun. Imagine if you get a bunch of really good writers and narrative designers in a room to say, what are we going to do with the next BioShock? They will think of some cool stuff. I mean,
or the great Phantom Menace. What the fuck are we talking about? They have failure. There's a failure rate, Lone. Come on.
No, there is I'm not saying there's not a failure rate, right? There's going to be a big risk with this. But all I'm saying is that at the end of the day, look how different really BioShock Infinite was to BioShock 1.
Oh, dude.
But they always have their kind of core things that BioShock goes back to. It's a utopia society that has a dystopian afterlife, if you will. Yeah. They're trying to escape from the real world. They discovered these superpowers, whether it's plasmids or whether it's vigors, whatever they call them in Infinite, right? Those are the cores of BioShock, and it doesn't matter where it's actually set. So long as you have those key factors, it will feel like BioShock.
Huge key in BioShock.
Symbolism is a huge key. Religion kind of is a little bit of a huge key as well.
Infinite.
And philosophy.
Philosophy, absolutely. Fucking Andrew Ryan is literally like, is a man not entitled to the sweat on his brow?
Not only that, but fucking Mr. Kool-Aid Man who killed all of the people. What was his name? The cult leader that killed all of his people with Kool-Aid. God, I made a joke about this a couple days ago. It was in like the 60s. What?
Oh, I thought you were talking about someone in game. I was like,
oh no, I know he's talking about.
No, it's what's his name? You actually hear them dying. There's an audio recording where somebody had the telephone live while they were all drinking cyanide in the Kool-Aid. And I would love the idea of like that, of a group like that escaping, under a religious leader, and then and then that world. What would they create? What things would they create?
It's always about people. You're trying to escape the
Jonestown
utopia that's become a dystopia. What if there was like an outside source? You were born into this society. There was an outside source constantly contacting, trying to get in to this, thinking it was something else.
Well, that's sort of what I was talking about.
Is that what you're getting at? Okay.
Yeah, that is what I was getting at.
Someone else trying to get into your society, and you let them in, and then shit goes wrong, and you're kind of in that downward.
I liked the idea, though, of you being the person who led the terror, because I thought Prey did a good job with some of that switch up. And I know you guys weren't as heavy on Prey as I was, but I liked some of that.
In a way that's Infinite, technically, you're the one who brings the terror because you're the false shepherd or whatever, and they see your hand, and they're like, oh, fuck, and then you start shooting everyone after that.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Maybe I did nothing more than I know, like we said, we're not narrative designers or anything, but we're spitfiring ideas, and every time we hit this roadblock, and we're like, what now? And it's like, 2K's had to have this conversation a bunch of times. Oh, yeah.
I just hope it's one of those things where if they do announce it, it's like, oh, fuck, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That's genius. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those.
And we know the behind the scenes for Ken, and they tore up, like, even his own level designer was like, I'll never work for him again because of some of the stuff I had to go through. So, and Ken, he's the guy who actually, I think, had the best vision, had to recreate his vision. At minimum, we know 3 times. So that's the person who knows his shit. So maybe I should shut up and not keep asking for Ken and be like, maybe we do need new people to go in and come up, because he was having his own problems with that. I mean, huge problems. So
we are at a situation that with BioShock. Look, I think we kind of have to accept that we are never going to have the likes of Ken or whatever it is, or a studio that was exactly like Irrational work on BioShock again. And we kind of have to accept that whatever we do get, either it's not going to be as good, or even if it technically is good, it's just going to be very different to what we had with BioShock in the past. But I don't think that's a good enough reason for us to never have BioShock again. I think that's stupid. Yeah, right. Like whatever new BioShock game that comes out, it shouldn't affect your enjoyment of the previous games. And heck, it might not be as good as the previous ones, but you have to accept that if we want to get a new BioShock. Because there's no other way
you'll have kids, Lone, too. The kids got to play games. Like, we don't just stop making games.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
exactly
I agree.
Right.
I agree for sure. I just think that whenever anything's got a title, like a shock at the end, I really want to. I put a lot of, and I don't like them as much as you guys at all, which is funny because I can talk about them. I'm doing a walking the walk for Infinite, but I don't have anywhere near as much like. Interest as you guys do, but for some reason I'm very particularly protective of that series, and I think it's because it is so different. Like, that's if that makes sense. Like, I want it to be alien. I want it to be different enough for me to go, that's a shit. Because I played System Shock 2, one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm so nervous that like the System Shock stuff that's coming out like won't hit the same marks. I want it to, so I'm so nervous about that. It's just they're good. They're different. They're different. I don't know what. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. I don't even feel the same.
Yeah, I don't think it's got to be one of those things where you got to like love BioShock to be protective of it. Yeah, it's just a very different series, because there's very few games that I play a decade later, I think, at this point. It was BioShock 1 in 06 or 08?
It was 08, yeah.
All right, so almost a decade later, I'm sorry. And it still has aged.
You can still
really
go back to it.
Yeah, I'm saying like first timer, you can go back and play that and think it was a modern game. But like, the hacking mini game in BioShock 1 a little redundant. But like, I mean, there's just so many layers to the story that it's like it's one of those games you need to keep returning to. Like, just it's like an onion. You just got to keep peeling it back again and again. Yeah. And it's like, okay, there's more. Okay, there's more again. Oh, there's even a deeper meaning here. Because it's just that second, third, fourth time you're hearing it. It has this different feeling to it. And that's one other thing that I don't see Hangar 13 or whatever studio replicating, is just that level of thoughtful writing. I mean, it feels like every fucking line in BioShock has been meticulously narrowed down and focused in on, where they're like, this has to have like tons of meaning that I can Google for hours.
Yeah, right.
It's insane.
There was a rumor about a Snowpiercer game, and that would be another title that I think could fit this. That's the game with the Chris Evans movie where he's on the train, and it's after an apocalypse, and that train just keeps driving around the world, and it's sort of about the different class structure there. You could look at something like that where it doesn't have to be in a solidified place. Like, I would have played that. Unfortunately, it got canceled, but when they were first talking about that, I was like, oh shit, like Train Shock. Like, that could actually be very cool. I don't know if you guys have played it, but there's a game called not Conundrum, but it's the one where it's the airplane in space or in the air, and it's a massive airplane, and it's like a city in an airplane. Have you guys, either one of you guys, checked that out?
I never heard
so it's an indie game, and that first person indie game, and that's like this massive, airplane in the future that like travels, because I think it's because if I remember right, the world isn't habitable anymore, something crazy like that. But cool, so you could do some of those cool things too, where it doesn't have to necessarily be a whole new ecosystem, but instead like something like that. Snowpiercer was a great idea. I didn't like the movie, but a great idea for a game. I'd play the shit out of that. That was such a cool.
I also just thought of is, I mean, we've seen what happens when another developer, not Ken Levine, puts his hands on the franchise with BioShock 2, and I don't think that turned out too bad. I mean, but the other thing is that you return to Rapture. So
and I guess
I didn't like
kind of had.
Man.
I know a lot of people, like a few. I don't know if it's the majority or whatever, didn't like 2, right? But at the very least, 2 did have some fun gameplay, but it did have Rapture to fall back on. I mean, imagine if BioShock 2 was set in a completely different setting or was just really different in terms of the environment, right? I think people would have hated it 10 times more. In some senses, the fact that it was set in Rapture was its saving grace.
Sure. Yeah. No.
So if the next BioShock, whatever it is,
I can't have too much of an opinion on that game because I only played it once around the time it came out. I remember I got it, played it, and that was it. I remember liking it a lot, but that's why I'm looking forward to replaying it because it's so vague. And I never played Minerva's Den, but I've heard amazing things about that. So it's like I'm really looking forward to that. Should be good.
I mean, it's the game that, and I don't know whether it's for nostalgic reasons or because it's the second and Ken Levine didn't work on it, but it's kind of the game that when I think back on, I don't have as vivid memories as the others.
Yeah, me neither.
But I can kind of explain that to an extent because Infinite had such a great story and BioShock 1 was the first. And BioShock 2 is kind of like, literally, it's like the middle child.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't know that Ken didn't work on it. I didn't know, and I didn't even follow. Yeah, so I played 2, and everybody was mad at me because I went to work, and I'm like, this is not as good as 1. Everybody was like, not everybody, but a lot of people were like, what do you mean, blah, blah, blah? And I was like, something feels different. And then one of the guys at work was like, well, the main guy's not the same. And I was like, oh, the entire motto doesn't feel right. Like, it just, things didn't, because you have that guy, that fucking quarterback coach or the head coach who's like, nah, everything has to go here and here. And you don't think maybe sometimes that they do a ton, but if they're gone, the atmosphere that they create is the juice. That's what causes people to do the things.
Here's the thing, though, with, and I guess I know we're babbling at this stage, but with BioShock 2, I guess people might have been more upset at that because Ken Levine didn't work on it. And that's because he was still working on BioShock and he was still doing Irrational Games. And like, he still wanted to do something else BioShock related, right? So people might have thought, well, why the hell is Ken Levine not doing this game? Why did you pawn it off? Now it's a different situation. Ken is not working on a new BioShock game ever. So we need to work with what we have. That wasn't the situation with BioShock 2.
Right.
It's really strange.
It is. It's like it's like George Lucas fucking selling until I die, I'll never understand selling like Star Wars to Disney. I'll never understand Ken just saying I'm not doing, like, to me, I mean, but that's because they're artists and I'm not. They know what the fuck they're doing. Like, obviously Ken was like, it's not juicing me anymore. And that's the way it should be, right? I mean, we see that. It's like, if it's not working for you, give it to us, where we're sitting here talking about fucking number 2 for half an hour for no reason. Obviously somebody cares who will put some focus into it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that'll wrap up all we have. We just hit the 2-hour mark, so.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Just really fucking babbled away there. That was a good.
Oh, dude, that wasn't babble. That was fucking quite intelligent discourse for 3 people with barely double-digit IQs. We did quite well.
That was about a 40-minute discussion in its own right. Fuck.
Oh, was it?
Good stuff.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool. I learned some stuff.
Awesome. So that'll wrap it up, and hashtag learn some stuff.
What did what's his name? He's on the podcast. What did Lone say about NES? He said it's ugly and it caused you to laugh, or they're ugly. He was talking about games, and you just started laughing.
So hashtag it's so ugly.
That's so ugly is a great. I like that hashtag.
Yeah. That's all right.
That's my vote.
If you got to the end of this 2-hour episode, hashtag that is so ugly is the one you should send in the direction of at Jeremy Penter at G27status and at LoneVaultWanderer, not Wanderer, but Wander.
I'm still waiting. Characters to work with.
I'm still waiting for someone to be like, Matty, you spelled his name on Twitter wrong, you idiot. And I'm gonna be like, oh well, character limit, because it always looks like your name just gets cut off or something.
Fucking annoying. Like, so one day I'm waiting for
his name is what?
So my Twitter handle is LoneVaultWanderer because ER was cut off, right? I'm waiting for the day that this Twitter handle, which is just at Lone, to give up his shit because he's some sort of agency. I don't know. He needs to get rid of it, and then I'll take at Lone. That'd be amazing.
Just buy it off of him. Just pay the big bucks,
You're probably good.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Karak. Thank you, Lone. It was a great discussion as per usual. And we will catch you guys in next week's episode.
Peace out.